Chapter 253. However, Yang Yi's proposal was not fully approved by Fu Jun. He frowned, thought for a while and said, "Record sales are not as simple as you think, Yang Yi. Basically, the major record companies control the distribution channels. If we want to sell records, we can't bypass their restrictions. We're not going to do distribution. We're going to do the same business as bookstores and video stores. We won't produce books or records, but we'll be sales agents." Yang Yi explained. "It's just like the books sold in online stores are not all books from Sahara Publishing House. Understand?" Fu Jun patted his head, secretly thinking that he was thinking too much. However, Fu Jun didn't think too much about it. Yang Yi's next words revealed the true purpose of his proposal. "However, this is only for now. We can cooperate with these record distribution companies in the early stages, but we have to steal from them and get the rules and corresponding resources for record distribution. When the time is right, we can also establish our own distribution channels." "Your own distribution channel?" Fu Jun asked in surprise. His heart started to beat faster. Yes. Yang Yi's tone was still calm at the moment, and he seemed to be unperturbed on the phone. "We'll take another path and do an internet-style distribution channel. Moreover, our main target is not the large entertainment companies. We won't fight with the current record companies for this cake. We'll be the distribution channel for independent musicians that they look down on, so that everyone who likes music can release their records." Fu Jun sucked in a breath of air. He could see Yang Yi's deeply hidden ambition in this. Of course, Fu Jun was still not sure whether independent musicians' records would be welcomed by the market. The benefits of this distribution channel were difficult to estimate, but Fu Jun was persuaded by Yang Yi. This was a very interesting goal. Not only records but also movies, videos and books. "We can do an internet-style distribution channel, giving individual creators or small companies with no background a platform to show themselves." Yang Yi smiled slightly. "It's just like what Chi Yu did with the web novel. Believe me, the creative ability of billions of people will make Sahara Publishing House take off completely." Although Yang Yi's words were not passionate at all, Fu Jun himself was surging with excitement. Good. I'll call someone for a meeting in a while," Fu Jun said excitedly. Of course, there was no need for Yang Yi to come up with the actual plan for Fu Jun. Fu Jun was not an idiot boss, so he would naturally organize his planning team to study it. He would also wisely hide the grand plan that Yang Yi mentioned. Now, all he needed to do was to establish a good relationship with the record company and get them to sell the internet to Sahara Online Mall. "Don't worry, I have a gadget here that I recommend you and your employees to try. It's quite fun." Yang Yi smiled. "It's called micro-broadcasting. It's something that my people have recently developed." Although Yang Yi had high hopes for micro-broadcasting, its development was still relatively slow after it was developed. It could not even catch up with the promotion of another product of the same project. Facebook had already become popular in the campus of Jiang City Media University. The path it took seemed to be similar to Facebook in that time and space. After all, it was a plan provided by Yang Yi. However, it was slightly different under Mao Peifu's adjustment. There was no use of hacking techniques to steal the registration photos of female students that might cause disgust. Mao Peifu made use of her connections and Yang Yi's financial support to organize a campus bell election in the School of Business Media. Mao Peifu had asked for the consent of all the beautiful students in the School of Business Media who were on the list. They had signed contracts and paid remuneration. Of course, they had also provided the most beautiful photos that they had taken. It was definitely not comparable to those ID photos. Although he wasn't part of the staff, Guozi had volunteered to be part of the publicity staff after he learned about senior sister Mao Peifu's plan from Ding Xiang. He loved being evaluated as the most beautiful girl in the academy. With Guozi jumping up and down waving the flag and shouting, coupled with the campus bell election, a large number of registered users flooded into Facebook. Most of them were boys, but there were also many girls who came to watch the fun. Moreover, it was not only the students of the School of Business Media. Students from other faculties also joined in excitedly. They soon discovered the benefits of Facebook. those beautiful students were real. By clicking on their photos, they could enter their homepage. They could see the photos that they posted in their albums and read their diaries to understand what kind of people they were. There was a guy who was as shameless as Guazi on his homepage. I successfully added them. I think I'm in love. The first selection came to an end quickly. Everyone had different preferences, and the results of the selection would naturally be controversial. This controversy was good because it would continue to bring popularity to Facebook. Of course, after participating in the Campus Bell election, the boys couldn't sit still. They all expressed that they would hold a Campus Bell election for their faculties too. More voices said, "There are no real beauties in the School of Business Media. The real beauties are in the film school. If there's a selection, how can we leave out the beauties from the film school?" The voices for the beauties from the film school to join in were getting louder and louder. Mao Peifu and her team naturally wouldn't disappoint everyone. This time, if they were going to do it, they would do it big. Rivertown Media University Goddess Selection. Obviously, Mao Peifu couldn't use her connections and monetary rewards to get the beauties from the School of Business Media to join in. Rivertown Media University was too big. There were too many girls and beauties. If they were to talk to them one by one, Mao Peifu and her team wouldn't be able to do it even if they were exhausted. However, Mao Peifu was after all the vice president of the student union. Although she had resigned, she had rich experience in student activities and had strong connections. Soon, Mao Peifu pulled the strings and got Facebook to sponsor a big event with the student union of Rivertown Media University. Of course, it wasn't the tacky Campus Bell election. Instead, it was a makeover and a goddess selection that competed on talent and looks. It was divided into 2 rounds. First, there would be an online voting on Facebook to choose 20 beauties. Then, there would be a large-scale live Rivertown Media University Goddess Selection Gala in the stadium of 10,000 people. They would be allowed to showcase their talents on the spot. The judges would give marks and online voting. Mobile phones could be used to vote through Facebook. In the end, the first, second and third place would be selected. Of course, Mao Peifu had also provided a huge budget for this event. In addition to the prize pool of 100,000 yuan for the first, second and third place, there were also some lucky draw activities in the first round of the selection to stimulate the voting. A professional team was hired to plan, decorate, and direct the gala. Lastly, there was also a huge sponsorship for the Student Union of Rivertown Media University. Mao Peifu had used no less than 500,000 yuan for this event. Although this event was still in progress, the generous rewards and the honor of being a beautiful and intelligent goddess had already stimulated many girls to sign up. Their participation had also greatly stimulated more boys to register as Facebook users. It wasn't just Rivertown Media University. Boys from other universities in Tingshan district, and even other universities who had heard the news on the internet had also come. The number of registered Facebook users was increasing rapidly every day. Although they were only here to look at the beauties, they would eventually discover the difference between Facebook and other blogging websites. This wasn't a simple blogging website. It was a personal homepage that had a certain level of privacy and could be used to build one's own network. One could post photos to one's friends, publish one's diary, and even purely use it as a place to publish one's own private information. How could such a fun Facebook not be popular? Chapter 254. Unknowingly, it had already been the month of bachelors. Zhongqing, which had entered late autumn, had already touched the traces of winter. Especially after the setting sun disappeared at the end of the horizon, the bleak cold wind began to howl between the buildings, destroying the already bald branches. The pedestrians on the road couldn't help but shiver when they heard the sound. They wrapped themselves in windbreakers and walked 2 steps faster. Fortunately, the house was warmer. Yang Yi had already installed the home heating equipment for Shi. "Papa, hurry up, hurry up. Mom is going to be on TV." That night, Yang Yi, who hadn't finished his dinner, was urged by the little girl. He had to put down his bowl and chopsticks and was dragged by Shi's little hand to the living room. They sat on the sofa and watched the live broadcast on TV. The TV was broadcasting Shanghai TV's Music Power Ranking. This program was currently one of the 3 most authoritative ranking programs in the Chinese music industry. When a singer released a new song, they would need to appear on 3 ranking shows one after another to fight for a higher ranking for their song. That way, they would be able to gain more exposure. The Music Power Ranking program was set in a small music hall. There were supporting fans at the scene, shouting as if they were watching a concert. Moreover, the whole process was broadcast in the form of a live broadcast. It was a special test of the singer's live performance. It could also be said that the so-called recording studio singers couldn't hide from such a program. Of course, this was also a special test of the singer's psychological endurance. Some singers who were too nervous would also make a fool of themselves on the program. These were inevitable. Although Murphy hadn't released a new album yet, she had released a single. Naturally, she had to go for Coming Across the Sea to See You. On TV, the host was interviewing Murphy. She sat next to her father, her little hand holding her father's finger. She was more nervous than anyone else. "Papa, is Mom going to sing?" the little girl asked. "Yes." Young Yi patted she's little head and smiled gently. "When will she sing?" The little girl was a little impatient. "Sure, she will sing now." Yang Yi comforted his daughter and focused on the TV. In fact, he was also looking forward to Murphy's live performance. He really liked watching Murphy sing his songs. "Then let's invite Murphy to perform I Came Across the Ocean to See You, that everyone has been waiting for." The host finally gave up the stage, and the crowd cheered. There were still some Murphy fans who came to the venue. Although the number was not as many as the popular singers, they still raised their support cards high up in the air for Murphy. When the camera panned to the audience, the flashing lights of the 2 words Murphy made people feel that Murphy was not alone. But Murphy was alone on the stage. There was no choreography for this song. On the big stage, the lights were bright, and she was all alone. However, Mofei's expression was very calm, just like when she was on the show, indifferent, cold, and had a very low sense of presence. If it weren't for her outstanding appearance and extraordinary temperament, she would probably be ignored by others. "For you, I used half a year's savings to come across the ocean to see you." Finally, after the prelude, Murphy raised the microphone and sang a little sadly under the white fog on both sides. Her ethereal and sad voice penetrated the hearts of the fans present and the audience in front of the TV like an electric shock. So it's this song. The fans of other stars on the scene may not know Mofei very well, but these days they still heard the people around them humming Mofei's popular song. So when they heard the first line of the song, their eyes suddenly lit up. For this gathering, I even practiced my breathing repeatedly when we meet. Mofei's passionate singing made these people's bodies sway uncontrollably. The light sticks in their hands, which were only held for their idols, also couldn't help but be lifted up by the joy in their hearts. As if there were more and more support, the stage was dimmed, and the stars below looked like a sea of stars. The climax of the song was not "I Came Across the Sea to See You," nor was it the sudden high-pitched memories. They always accumulate slowly. But after the high-pitched, I couldn't hold back my tears even when I was in the most desperate. Murphy paused, and with the newly added violin accompaniment, she sighed and sang, "In a strange city, in a familiar corner." That sobbing voice suddenly gave the audience goosebumps. It's so nice. Such a sad song, such a beautiful voice. Isn't it worth everyone turning around for her? Vote. Vote, vote, vote. Buy songs. Buy, buy, buy. Watching you go away in the wind and sand. I'm so sad that I can't help myself. The voice was already floating with the wind and sand. Some girls with shallow tear ducts, looking at Mofei, who was alone on the stage, and listening to her singing as if she was trying her best to be strong, were instantly moved to tears. Passers-by turned fans. I'm afraid this is the moment. Murphy's song. The first people who heard it was sad, but Yang Yi, who was sitting in front of the TV, heard it many times. This time, he heard Murphy's second emotion overlapping the first one. Sweetness. "I hope I can accompany you for 1,000 miles until the end of the world, and stay with you for a lifetime. This stupid woman isn't the sweet smile she rarely shows in public. Murphy sang on the stage to her heart's content. Perhaps she didn't know that at this moment, there was a little person in front of the TV looking at her with admiration. After her mother started singing, she clenched her father's fingers. She was actually a little worried for her mother. But with Murphy singing freely, she's nervousness slowly relaxed. The little girl watched her mother sing loudly on the stage, and her little body couldn't help but twist. Mom is too amazing. The feelings of worship almost filled the little girl's little heart, but she was still focused on watching her mother's performance. She didn't shout out, as if she was afraid that it would affect her mother. I will stay with you for the rest of my life. In the end, Mo Fei used her excellent breath to drag out the last syllable until it was so weak that it was almost inaudible. It was not to show off her skill, but to fully express her reluctance to part with him at the end. The accompaniment played a lonely part in the end before it slowly came to an end. When the accompaniment ended, Murphy held the microphone and bowed deeply to the fans she had missed for a long time. Lala. Almost all the audience, no matter the fans, stood up at this moment and excitedly applauded Murphy. They applauded her song that moved them. The applause didn't stop for a long time. Murphy could only bow again. When she raised her head again, her emotions couldn't help but fluctuate. Several senior music hosts from Shanghai TV station who were waiting below the stage to host saw this scene and could only stop in their tracks and wait for the applause to stop. They looked at the tearful Murphy on the stage, and one of the hosts couldn't help but sigh. She's back. Yes. How long has it been since they saw Murphy have so many audience members applauding and cheering for her? The last time was probably when Strangers was released, right? Yes, the Chinese music industry, she's back. Chapter 255. Dilla Dilla. Oh yeah. In Beijing, the taxi driver in front was already humming along with the melody on the car radio. For you, I used half a year's savings. Murphy was on fire. After she appeared on the 3 major music chart shows and sang, Coming Across the Ocean to See You, the song became a hit as well. This was completely different from the popularity of fast music. At that time, the listeners who liked the song only relied on their memories of the show's reruns and word of mouth to spread the song. The ratings of the 3 major music chart shows were naturally not something that fast music could compare with. Moreover, this time the show also had a CD of the single. As the song became more popular, all the major radio stations began to play the song. However, while the driver was humming happily, the passenger in the back was annoyed. She patted the front seat and said, "Hey, uncle, can you stop singing? Not only is your singing terrible, but you're also swaying around. Even if you don't want to live, I still want to live, okay?" The driver in the front seat paused and stopped singing. However, it wasn't that he was apologizing. The big men in Beijing had bad tempers. Now that he was being scolded by this woman, he was a little annoyed. His expression kept changing, and he was struggling whether to scold her back or not to argue with her. Only Murphy's sad singing could be heard in the car. It was very awkward. Fortunately, another older woman in the back seat pulled her angry companion and said reproachfully, "Jeanne, Qian, don't cause trouble." Then she humbled herself and apologized to the driver. "Hey, it's not a big deal. Okay, tell your friend to pay attention to her words in the future. In Beijing, if she makes a fuss, she'll be punished." The driver's anger came and went quickly. He waved his hand and laughed heartily. "Yes, you're right," Jian Chua said with a smile. The 2 passengers in the car were Zhen Muqian, and her manager Jian Chua. The 2 of them had come to Beijing to participate in a show to promote Zhen Muqian's new album. Obviously, the strength and effect of the promotion was far less than that of Murphy, who had only sung 1 song. Zhen Muqian looked like she had been wronged. She didn't explode until they returned to the hotel. She threw herself on the bed and pretended to cry. "Sister Chow, you're still helping the driver to scold me. Jinjin, you're a celebrity now. You have to be more careful with what you do. Don't let your temper get the best of you, Jian Chua said to Zhen Muqian as she hung up the clothes. I know, but he didn't recognize me, right? Zhen Muqian said, feeling somewhat unhappy. He didn't recognize you, but what if he makes a big deal out of it? Jian Chua said seriously. No matter what the occasion is, you have to pay special attention to your image. You are now a sweet and well-behaved actress, not a shrew. Zhan Muqian understood, but she was still envious and jealous. She couldn't let go of her anger. Now that she saw Jian Chua being so serious, she pouted and said reluctantly, I know, Sister Chow. I know you're wronged, but you're developing well. You're a bit slow, but one day you'll surpass Murphy. Jian Chua sat down and said gently. Zhen Muqian felt wronged. Sister Chow, I came across the ocean to see you was originally my song Sob Sob. In Zhan Muqian's opinion, this song was originally in her hands, but it disappeared without a trace. If it was her who sang this song, then the person who was popular all over the country and was being chased by this damn driver should be her, Zhen, not Mo Fei. Okay, don't think too much about it. Who told Murphy to be so overbearing? The company isn't like it was a month ago. Sister Ling is completely on Murphy's side and gives her all the resources. Jian Chua sighed. You can only swallow this anger. If you want to vent, wait until you become a celebrity and surpass Murphy. Jian Chua said as she patted Zhen Muqian's back. Zhan Muqian pouted, but in his heart, he secretly remembered the resentment at this moment. I heard that you've been helping Mao Peifu promote her Facebook. Do you want me to give you a salary as well? It's considered a part-time job. Mao Peifu said that you're very useful. Yang Yi teased Guizi. The little fatty was breaking open a cupcake and started eating from the soft bread in the middle. He puffed out his mouth and said with difficulty, No need, I'm only helping out because of you, Brother Yang. It's for friendship. Che, you just want to see more beauties. That's why you're so enthusiastic. Ding Xiang walked by and mercilessly exposed him. Sister Mao told me a long time ago. Who doesn't know about your perverted heart? That's not it, Guizi said with a red face. If I'm just looking at beauties, why would I vote for you? This time, it was Ding Xiang's turn to blush. Last time, because there weren't many girls in the business media school, Ding Xiang was pulled to make up the numbers. She wore a coffee shop uniform for the photo shoot. Needless to say, Ding Xiang, who didn't have outstanding looks, stood in front of the camera and took a set of photos. After some editing, adding light, and whitening by a computer expert, she was actually as lovely as the neighbor's little sister. When the final results came out, although Ding Xiang was still far from first place, she still squeezed into the top 10. Of course, Guizi would always proudly say that all the credit was his in front of Ding Xiang. If he didn't pull votes for Ding Xiang wouldn't have become one of the top 10 beauties of the business media school. Ding Xiang didn't want to be one of the top 10 beauties. Every time she heard this, she couldn't wait to beat Guizi up. Yang Yi looked at them and laughed. When Guizi could eat the cake in peace, he said, Hiring students to do campus promotions is a new idea I gave to Mao Peifu. After all, our eyes won't only be on Jiangchuan. Students from universities all over the country are our initial potential customers. So this plan will continue and it will go through the formal hiring process. Since you've done so much work for Mao Peifu, it's only right that we give you some compensation. Guizi waved his hand and said, No need, Brother Yang. You know that my family doesn't lack money. His eyes suddenly rolled and he said with a smile, Brother Yang, how about this? You don't have to give me money. Anyway, I can eat all the cakes in this shop. Is that okay? Guizi especially liked the cupcakes that Ding Xiang made. Although he was fooling around at the film school every day, he still came over to buy cupcakes from time to time. However, Ding Xiang limited the amount of cupcakes he could buy. He could only buy one cupcake a day. In your dreams, Brother Yang, you can eat all the cakes here. Over the years, won't you be eating Brother Yang's money? Ding Xiang heard him and immediately said, It's not like I don't want to pay. I'll still pay. I just don't want to only eat one cake at a time. The little fatty was greedy. Ding Xiang turned her head and said to Yang Yi, Brother Yang, you can't agree to eat this kind of dessert every day. Look at how fat he is. He still hasn't lost weight. Indeed, although Guozi had lost a lot of weight when he came back from Beijing, after the military training, he didn't exercise much. He gradually gained back his weight and his skin color returned. That was why Ding Xiang limited his purchases. Guozi looked at Yang Yi pleadingly. Brother Yang, please do a good deed. Anyway, the cakes in the shop can't be sold. It's a waste to keep them. Why don't you sell them to me? I can even help you promote them. Who said they can't be sold? Ding Xiang said with a lack of confidence. Yang Yi smiled and spread his hands at Guozi. I can't do anything about that. The cakes were made by Ding Xiang. If she doesn't agree, I can't say anything. Guozi screamed. There was no other way. The little fatty could only lick the crumbs on the paper cup in his hand. It was so miserable. Chapter 256. No. He can't do it. Director Chen, why can't he do it? Our Yanliang spent a lot of effort to observe the countryside for this movie. He suffered a lot. Please give him some advice. Maybe he can act it out. It's useless to give him advice. There's only one weakness: acting. Do you understand? He acted like a ruffian and acted like a peasant, but his heart was filled with resistance. What kind of Susan duo we want? From his appearance to his bones. He has to have the inferiority of a poor village child. This is created by the environment and can't be erased. So, anyone with a discerning eye can see that he's acting. He's too pretentious. There's no saving him. Chen Fengchen sent away another actor who had followed his manager to the audition. Then, he vented his suppressed anger on his assistant and the rest of the crew. What kind of actor is this? Where did they come from? And they acted like shit. Why did they let you do the screening first? Did they get paid? This furious scolding caused the people below to keep quiet out of fear. They didn't even dare to breathe out loud. Actually, it wasn't entirely because of the actor. Chen Fengchen was furious because he had to juggle the post-production of Great Chu's Palace and the crew of Soldiers' Assault. He was frustrated because he couldn't find the Susan duo in his heart. Other roles were fine, but if he couldn't find Susan duo, he could forget about filming this movie. Chen Fengchen thought of his backup plan. Where did Xiao Ruan go? Why hasn't there been any news from the self-recommendation videos of the new actors that I asked him to review for more than a week? Assistant Ruan didn't slack off before, but he didn't dare to be too diligent. He was afraid that if he took out the selected videos, he would be scolded by the nitpicky Chen Fengchen again. But now, even if he was unlucky, he could only bite the bullet and run over with his computer. I'm here, Director Chen. I saw that you were quite busy before. Without further ado, Chen Fengchen waved his hand and shooed Assistant Ruan away. Then, he clicked on the selected audition videos one by one. Although he was old, these high-tech products were no worse than the young people. The more he read, the darker Chen Fengchen's face became. If the actors that had been recommended by management companies and acting companies were pretending to be farmers, then in Assistant Ruan's videos, 60 to 70% of them were farmers pretending to be actors. It was obvious that they were afraid of his anger, so he went to find some real farmers to recommend themselves. This farmer's rustic nature was shown, but his acting skills were really unsightly. Chen Fengchen had walked more roads than he had eaten rice. How could Chen Fengchen not see through Assistant Ruan's thoughts? However, I'll scold him after I finish reading it. Chen Fengchen held back his anger and diligently clicked on the videos one by one. When he was almost at the end, he saw a caption that said, Actor Geng Sha, audition for Act 9, Section 7. Geng Sha, this name was rather unique. Chen Fengchen took a second glance before clicking on it. A dim-witted man appeared in the video. He wasn't tall and had dark skin, similar to the farmers in front of him. He shouldn't be too old. Although he wasn't as young as Su Sanduo, he should still be an immature child from the countryside. Someone outside the camera was reciting lines to him. Do you want to be a soldier, little brother? Chen Fengchen saw this child named Geng Sha timidly glance at the camera. He didn't know if he was acting or not, but he softly said, yes. Why? In the video, Geng Sha's mouth moved. He lowered his head and hesitated for a moment before saying in a very small voice, after I become a soldier, Dad won't call me son of a turtle anymore. He won't be able to kick me or hit me. I won't be able to hear what he calls me. This Mandarin that was filled with a dialect made Chen Fengchen feel very familiar. It made him stop his action of closing the video. Chen Fengchen hesitated for a moment before deciding to continue watching. On the computer screen, Geng Sha made a gesture of scratching his head. Originally, Chen Fengchen was very disgusted by this kind of meaningless action, but when Geng Sha raised his head, that ordinary and simple face, combined with this action, inadvertently moved his heart. Chen Fengchen's gaze turned serious. I graduated from junior high school, but the teacher said that I had a solid foundation and that I was really learning. Qing Kai graduated from senior high school, but he didn't study hard. In junior high school he kept giving me notes. Geng Sha seemed to be talking about his glorious past, and he slightly puffed out his chest. This part of the script was the key plot where Su Sanduo revealed his inner thoughts to Shi Jin. It was basically a one-man show for the main character. I'm not a coward. Qing Kai and the others tried to scare me in the graveyard, but they weren't scared. Sometimes they looked like they were scared, but they were faking it. Otherwise they wouldn't have stopped. It's not that I didn't dare to watch the pig being slaughtered, That was... Geng Sha tried his best to explain. It was just like when he was being mocked at the film base. He clumsily tried his best to explain to others that he wasn't stupid. In the end, because of his lack of education, he was stuck in his words. This was also Geng Sha's real experience. He completely embodied the kind of nervousness, agitation, and frustration that Su Sanduo should have. Chen Fengchen couldn't help but be attracted by Geng Sha's real performance. His left hand clenched into a fist. It's not enough. Show me more. Show me more. Chen Fengchen called out in his heart. In the scene, the narrator and Su Sanduo rehearsed a few lines. Shi Jin's words made Su Sanduo happy, so Geng Sha also revealed a smile. His smile always gave people the feeling that he didn't care about anything. His smile must have been so wide that one could almost see his gums. At my place, it's called stir-fried pork with old bamboo shoots. Geng Sha's silly smile and silly words made people see the change in him. Previously, when Geng Sha was showing off himself, he did show a sense of inferiority. But now, because of Shi Jin's kind words, Geng Sha seemed to have let down his guard. The thick sense of simplicity in his words made Chen Fengchen feel very comfortable. Especially Geng Sha's smile. It made Chen Fengchen feel that this little boy wasn't actually that ugly. His heart was beautiful, just like Su Sanduo. He's my Su Sanduo. This thought made Chen Fengchen jump in fright. It must be known that even if a famous celebrity came to audition for his role, Chen Fengchen would still have to test a lot of things. He definitely wouldn't make a decision with just a few glances. But Geng Sha really did give him this feeling. It was a little unreliable. After all, he was a famous director. Chen Fengchen quickly calmed down. I want to meet this actor. I'll give you half a day to find him. Chen Fengchen called Assistant Ruan over. The ecstasy on his face had already disappeared as he spoke in a dignified manner. Assistant Ruan couldn't tell what was going on and didn't know what Chen Fengchen wanted to do, but he still agreed in fear. He quickly ran out to find a bin. Hurry up and call Geng Sha over. I'll give you 2 hours. 2 hours, I want to see him. Chapter 257. Although Zhongqing was also a city with a developed entertainment industry, and the coastal area near Shanghai was filled with various agencies and entertainment companies, Zhongqing did not have a strong film and television atmosphere like Beijing or Shanghai. Guozi had only recently discovered this awkward situation. Although he wanted to continue playing small roles to increase his acting experience, he could not make bricks without straw. This film and television base did not even have a film and television base, so how could he have a chance? However, Guozi's biggest strength was that he was fat. No, he was quick-witted. No, he was thick-skinned and had a sweet mouth. Without a film and television base, he mingled in the school's film club every day, pestering the senior brothers and sisters of the film academy to impart their experience, and even taking the initiative to buy drinks. At first, no one was willing to pay attention to this annoying little fatty. After 1 or 2 months, he gradually gained the recognition of others. Not only were they willing to answer his questions, but they were also willing to bring him along to play if there was a chance to film a low-budget movie. After all, this was Zhongqing's Film Academy, which was the 4th biggest star factory in China after the Beijing Film Academy, the Shanghai Drama Academy, and the Shanghai Drama Academy. The school had set up a special fund to support student films, and the Zhongqing Film Festival was supported by the Zhongqing government. The students could not afford to play in big film projects, but they had filmed many low-budget movies that cost tens of thousands of yuan. Even if they did not have a chance to appear on the big screen, they could still be used as practice for these future big directors and actors. Of course, the role of a fatty was not available in every movie. Small roles that were suitable for a newcomer like Guozi were even rarer. However, it did not matter. When there were no suitable roles for Guozi, Guozi also worked tirelessly with the crew. He even did the work of a stage supervisor without asking for remuneration. Everyone understood. Guozi had been influenced by his family since he was young. He was also well aware that this was just an emotional investment. The return was illusory and unreachable. However, who knew if there would be a protagonist that matched him in the future? Guozi only hoped that when there was a chance in the future, these senior brothers and sisters would remember his name. However, before he had the chance, someone else had gone ahead of him. That night, Guozi received a call from a public phone booth. Teacher Guo. The voice, the accent, and the way he addressed them made Guozi feel as if it was a lifetime ago. Wasn't this his little brother, Geng Sha, who he had not contacted for a month? The last time they contacted each other, Geng Sha also ran to the phone booth to call Guozi. Geng Sha had a cell phone that his hometown friend left for him. However, he could not bear to use it to make long-distance calls as he felt that it was expensive. The last time they contacted each other, it was because Geng Sha's fellow villagers had left the film base. The confused Geng Sha had asked Guozi about his whereabouts. Geng Sha sighed, "I told you to call me Xiao Gui." After Guozi finished complaining, Geng Sha, who was not clear, began to excitedly report the good news to him. "Teacher Guo, let me tell you something great. I've become the main character." Geng Xia's Mandarin, which was mixed with a strong local accent, was still so familiar. However, Geng Sha with him, Geng. Main lead. That's right. A big director has taken a fancy to me, and he wants me to be the main lead in a movie. Yes, it's the big director when we were filming Great Chu Palace. Geng Sha rambled on. Guozi was dumbfounded, and he could not help but feel a little sour in his heart. Back then, his little follower had already become the main lead, but he was still fooling around. At the same time, he felt a little powerless. He had worked very hard, but why was the realization of his dream still so far away? He had mixed feelings, however. Guozi was not a jealous person. After Geng Sha finished speaking, he regained his original optimism and congratulated Geng Sha with a smile. Geng Sha did not want to show off to Guozi. He called to tell Guozi that his crew was coming to Zhongqing to film because Guozi had said before that he was studying in Zhongqing. Although the main lead is gone, the others are still being recruited. Moreover, it's still Big Brother Bin and Director Ruan who are recruiting extras. Teacher Guo, come and give it a try. I've told Director Ruan, and he can let you play a special role. Geng Sha said sincerely. Really? Guozi's interest was piqued. He could also increase his acting experience in Zhongqing's crew. Guozi felt that this was a good opportunity. Of course it's true. Teacher Guo Sai, why would I lie to you? Geng Sha read out a string of numbers. This is Director Ruan's phone number, remember it. I might not be able to contact you for the time being, because the director asked me to follow the crew to the army for a week's special training tomorrow. Geng Sha's sincere nagging warmed Guozi's heart. He also said sincerely, Geng Sha, thank you. Also, don't call me Teacher Guo, just call me Xiao Guo. I'm younger than you. Aya, what are you thanking me for, Teacher Guo? I can become the main lead now because you introduced me to Director Ruan and Big Brother Bin. You also encouraged me not to give up. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this opportunity now. Geng Sha was still as honest as ever. Guozi put down the phone and felt a little lost, but he quickly adjusted himself. His own brother had already become the main lead with his own efforts. How could he slack off? He had to continue working hard and double his efforts. Compared to the hard-working Guozi, the hard-working Ding Xiang, and the hard-working Murphy, Yang Yi's daily life was really like a salted fish. Every day, other than 3 meals, housework, and a warm bed for his wife and children, he didn't have any big dreams. Even when writing novels, he just used the original ups and downs of the plot to torture the readers with the increasingly skilled level of breaking chapters. He didn't have any intention of increasing the speed of updating and earning more money. Today he was listening to music and reading in the coffee shop again. He was so bored that Ding Xiang couldn't continue reading. Brother Yang, don't you have any goals? Ding Xiang couldn't help but ask him. Goals? Yang Yi pondered. It seemed like he really didn't have any. If it was in his previous life, he would have already completed the 1,000 kills and become a legend in the assassin world. Perhaps he would have wanted to become stronger, from the strength of an A-level assassin to an S-level or SS level, so that he could get rid of the shackles of the organization. But now he was living in a peaceful city with the identity of an ordinary person, living a normal life that he dreamed of. It seemed like becoming stronger didn't have much meaning. Maybe I have a goal. I want to build the world's largest amusement park for Shi. Yang Yi really thought of one, and he said to Ding Xiang happily. Ding Xiang thought he was joking and said unhappily, "It's not that kind of impossible dream. I mean, Brother Yang, don't you have anything you want to do recently?" Wait a minute, I have to take a call. Yang Yi looked at the phone that lit up. It was Mo Xiaowan calling. He hurriedly waved his hand and picked up the phone. After a while, he hung up the phone happily and said to Ding Xiang with a smile, "Yes, what I want to do recently is to hold a birthday party for Mo Fei. It's best to surprise her and give her a big surprise." Ding Xiang helplessly rolled her eyes. Forget it, it's better not to try to save a salted fish. Chapter 258. On Friday, after more than a week of attacks, Coming Across the Sea to See You finally reached the top of the new song best-selling list compiled by the copyright organization. Winning this battle was not easy. After all, before this, the top of the list in early November was always occupied by the A-list male singer Yi Qing's Heart's Flower Fire. Heart's Flower Fire was also a very good love song. The lyrics were catchy and romantic. It really attracted a lot of fans for Yi Qing, who took the idol singer route. But Murphy still defeated Yi Qing in the end. Who let Coming Across the Sea to See You hit both men and women. After reaching the top, the people of Tianmei finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although before this song had also reached the top of the Music Power Chart, Radio Demand Chart, and other charts, but the influence of all the charts was not as good as this new song best-selling list. Behind it sat a gigantic copyright organization. It had been publicized in all the major music publications and websites, so its influence was obvious. Congratulations, Murphy sister. Amazing Faye sister, come on. I believe in you, Faye sister, waiting for you to return to the top. Murphy was now on the verge of returning to being an A-list singer. When she came back in the afternoon, the people in the company, whether it was innocent employees or other stars with a certain competitive relationship, All expressed their congratulations to her. Mo Xiaowan, who was following behind, looked at the latter's hypocritical smiling faces. It was completely different from when Murphy was down and out. She felt a burst of nausea. Thank you. Murphy's performance was okay. Although she also knew the faces of these people after all, she did not hit a smiling face. Murphy's personality was not as extreme as Mo Xiaojuan's, so she also responded indifferently. Fei sister Ling's sister wants you to go up. At this time, Niu Miling's assistant hurried down the stairs and just happened to meet them, so she quickly explained. Niu Miling wanted to find them again. Is there something wrong again? Mo Xiaowan secretly guessed. She followed Murphy into Niu Miling's company. However, this time it was Mo Xiaowan who measured the heart of a villain with the heart of a villain. Murphy, you're here. Come, take a seat. Just like 5 years ago, Niu Miling was full of smiles and stood up to greet Murphy enthusiastically. She even personally poured water for Murphy. Thank you, Sister Ling. Murphy was still as cold as ever in front of outsiders. No one could tell if her expression was one of gratitude or something else. Niu Miling didn't care. She smiled and said, Murphy, have you been busy recently? Well, it's okay. Mo Fei nodded lightly. How is that okay? Recently, Sister Fei has been working overtime. It's not like you don't know that her song is very popular now. The whole company wants to strike while the iron is hot and release the album as soon as possible. So Sister Fei is often so busy that she doesn't even have time to go to the bathroom. Mo Xiaowan complained for Mo Fei. That was the truth. After all, the entertainment industry developed very well under the foundation of perfect copyright protection. Especially the competition between singers was particularly fierce. The music industry could be said to be changing with each passing day. Don't look at how the song, Coming Across the Sea to See You, was very popular now. Fans were calling for the album to be released as soon as possible. However, if Murphy kept dragging it out, the fans would lose patience and the speed of loss would not be slower than the speed of gathering. The people of Tianmei didn't know how long this song would be popular. A week, a month, 2 months. It was hard to say. Moreover, Coming Across the Sea to See You was a new force to be reckoned with. It was easy to attract the hatred of competitors. If others used some tricks, the song's popularity might dissipate faster. Therefore, the speed of the album recording and MV shooting was increased. Tianmei's approach was not to be criticized. However, Murphy had to work a lot harder. Now she had to work overtime at night. The planning department mentioned this to me. Niu Miling smiled. So, didn't I find a way for you? What way? Mo Xiaowan asked curiously. On November 18th, Murphy will go to Shanghai to record Jixin interview. Niu Miling said. I've already asked someone to free up the schedule for you. This program is very important. I think Murphy and Xiaowan also understand that. You must be prepared. Also, you have to bring a new song to sing. Jixin interview was the program that Chen Yijie went to record. This program was not easy to get on. Not to mention the influence of Shanghai TV station, this program was a level higher than fast music. Niu Miling was able to get Luo Xian's invitation. It seemed that she had put in some effort and used her connections. Moreover, this time Mo Fei didn't need to be a green leaf to complement the red flower, because there would only be one guest in each episode of Jixin interview. If Mo Fei went, she would be the only red flower. Thank you, Sister Ling. Murphy was stunned for a moment and said gratefully. You don't have to thank me. Niu Miling smiled. If your song can sell well, the company will also profit. Speaking of which, Niu Miling's heart was still bleeding. If she could trick Murphy into signing another contract, Tianmei would earn several times more money than it did now. However, Niu Miling hid it very well. She reminded her with concern. The program will be recorded on November 18th and broadcast on the first Friday of December. You have to go back and think about which song to use for this program. Murphy nodded solemnly. It was also because Murphy's album had 12 songs that all of them were top quality that they could use the price of exposing a few songs in advance to earn popularity. If it was someone who was not at Murphy's level and still had to use this method, they would die miserably. Because if they took out bad songs to expose, the effect of the exposure would be almost zero. If it caused the fans to dislike it, it might even have the opposite effect. And if they used the title song to promote it, the fans might not buy the album after buying the CD of the single. The loss would not make up for the loss. Stimulated by his brother suddenly becoming the protagonist, Guozi worked even harder on the set of his senior brothers and sisters. However, he did not have any plans this afternoon, so he strolled to the coffee shop on the corner. When he arrived at the shop, Guozi did not go directly to Ding Xiang to buy cupcakes as usual. Instead, he looked straight at Yang Yi, who was gluing something to his exclusive booth. There was a struggle in the depths of his eyes. Geng Sha told Guozi that the TV series he was going to shoot was called Soldier's Assault. How could Guozi not be able to connect Yang Yi's book? Since it was a book authorized by Yang Yi, it was obvious that it was better to look for Yang Yi than to look for Brother Dabin and Assistant Wan. The first two people could only give Guozi a cameo role. At most, they would be special cameos with a few lines. If he looked for Yang Yi might even help him out on account of their relationship. Although Yang Yi did not agree when he was joking, Guozi knew Yang Yi's character. If he really put down his face and begged, Yang Yi would still help him. However, Guozi could not get past his own hurdle. If it was not because of his own efforts to fight for the role he deserved, then what was the point of taking this path? If he wanted to rely on others to achieve success, Guozi might as well listen to his family's arrangements and study a good major. Then he could enter politics after graduation. With his family's connections, it would not be a problem for him to have a meteoric rise. However, Guozi was a person with dreams. How can I tarnish my own dreams? Guozi struggled for a while and suddenly realized. This path I want to walk it myself. I don't rely on Brother Yang, I don't rely on my family, I don't rely on anyone. Guozi strengthened his belief and clenched his fist. What are you doing? You want to fight with me? Yang Yi raised his head and looked at him with a smile as he asked. Guozi was sweating profusely. He still remembered Yang Yifei's heroic appearance when he kicked the little wild boar to death. He quickly waved his hand and said in embarrassment, "How could that be, Big Brother Yang? I just miss you. I came to see you." "Yo, are you sure you missed Brother Yang and not the cake in the shop?" Ding Xiang was at the side. She covered her mouth and snickered, mercilessly exposing him. "Really, I came to find Brother Yang for something. Look, I didn't even look at your cake," Guozi said angrily. "What are you looking for me for?" Yang Yi asked again. Chapter 259. That's right. What was the reason for looking for Yang Yi? Guozi's mind was active. Looking at the small wooden house on Yang Yi's table, he had an idea and said, "Gift? Isn't Sister Murphy's birthday coming up? I can't go next Wednesday night, so I came to inform you. But I'll send the gift. Please pass it to Sister Murphy." "Can't go." "Why? Didn't we agree to celebrate Sister Murphy's birthday together?" Ding Xiang asked, puzzled. Yang Yi also frowned. He had specially invited Guozi and Ding Xiang to make Murphy's birthday more lively. "Sister Ding Xiang, have you forgotten? Didn't the dean inform us this morning that all the freshmen and sophomores in our college have to attend the dean's lecture at the Zhongqing Great Hall next Wednesday?" Guozi said helplessly. "Not only me, you have to go too." Ding Xiang was stunned. She hurriedly took out her phone and looked at the message she had ignored in the morning. "The college will arrange for a bus to pick up all the students. All the students will go and return together. The counselor will be responsible for counting the number of students. Those who are absent will have their time deducted." "Really?" Ding Xiang looked at Yang Yi with a troubled expression. This was a direct administrative order from the college. Although it was ridiculous, for the dean's sake they had to pull in students to make up the numbers. She had to go. It's okay. Just listen to the college's arrangements. I'll convey your thoughts to Murphy. Young-yi smiled and said calmly. Of course he still felt regretful, but he wouldn't blame his two friends because of the college's request. Brother Young, don't worry. I'll buy a big gift for Sister Murphy later. Guizi said, patting his chest. Z, take me with you. Help me. I don't know how to buy a gift. Ding Xiang made up her mind and pleaded with Guizi. Yo, it's rare that Sister Ding Xiang wants to go shopping with me. Sure, I'm just helping you pick out a gift. Let's go, let's pack up and close the door. Let's go. Guizi said excitedly. But I have to open the restaurant in the evening. Ding Xiang remembered. Yang-yi couldn't help laughing. He said, my shop's opening hours are very casual. You can go if you want. However, I don't care about Guizi's gift. Ding Xiang, your gift is not allowed to exceed 100 yuan, do you hear me? Guizi, you're responsible for supervising her for me. Bring back the receipt and show it to me. I don't want anything over 100 yuan. And Guizi, you have to compensate Ding Xiang. Guizi's eyes lit up. He glanced at Sister Ding Xiang and chuckled. Understood. I promise to supervise Sister Ding Xiang well. Ding Xiang rolled her eyes at him unhappily. In the evening, a pair of figures appeared on the pedestrian street of the commercial road in Tingshan district. No matter how you looked at them, they did not match. The man was white and fat, while the woman was dark and thin. Of course, it was hard to tell how dark Ding Xiang was at night. However, the combination of fat and thin still attracted a lot of strange gazes. Z, where are we going to buy gifts? Ding Xiang looked around curiously and asked. In fact, Ding Xiang had been here before. However, she was not here to shop. Instead, she was here in the hottest part of the summer, wearing a big doll costume and handing out flyers. She was about to get a heat stroke. How could she have the energy and spare money to go shopping? There are a few boutiques in front of Wan Le Fair. It's the best place to buy gifts. Guizi was not on the ground all day. He took Ding Xiang to the place with ease. Ding Xiang, who had not seen much of the bustling world, followed Guizi into a boutique. As soon as she entered the door, she was stunned by the dazzling array of goods on the shelves. There are so many things. Ding Xiang suddenly felt a little suffocated, especially those exquisite trinkets, which made her flustered. For a moment, Ding Xiang had some misconceptions. She felt that the heirlooms, necklaces, chest ornaments, bracelets, and so on that her grandmother had hidden and said that she would get married grandly in the future were not as beautiful as these trinkets. Of course, Ding Xiang was not stupid. She still knew what was good and what was bad. The trinkets that her grandmother had left for her were all made of real silver. They had been passed down for generations. How could these trinkets made of plastic compare to their value? However, silver trinkets would become dirty after all. If they were not washed by the Miao family's silversmiths, they would indeed not look good. Women were creatures who loved beauty. Seeing these beautiful trinkets in front of her, even Ding Xiang would inevitably be moved. Ding Xiang pinched the 200 yuan in her trouser pocket. She was thinking about whether it was worth it to buy these trinkets that cost only a few dozen yuan. But thinking of her grandmother at home, even if she now had a monthly income of 6,000 yuan, Ding Xiang was still reluctant to spend this money to buy herself a delicate crystal hairpin. Guizi was also looking for a gift. Seeing that Ding Xiang did not follow, he went back. He glanced at the things Ding Xiang was looking at and said, Sister Ding Xiang, you are not thinking of buying these for Sister Murphy, are you? This gift is not good. Guizi looked around and lowered his voice to Ding Xiang. Sister Murphy is a big star. All the jewelry she wears, including the clothes she wears, are sponsored. She can't wear anything from other brands. What's more, this hairpin is a little low grade. Ding Xiang pursed her lips but did not say anything. She just pushed Guizi and motioned him to go inside. What gift do you think I should buy for Sister Murphy? Ding Xiang looked for a while, but still did not know. There were expensive things in the boutique, so expensive that Ding Xiang was a little speechless. But Ding Xiang was not sure about the cheap things, so she could only ask Guozi for help. Guozi had already picked a gift. It was a kitten puppet that could play drums. Because of the complicated mechanism, the price was naturally not cheap. It was more than 500 yuan. Your budget is within 100 yuan. Guozi touched his chin and took Ding Xiang to the decoration area. After looking for a while, he took out a crystal ball with a simple base. How about this? It was not expensive, only 55 yuan. Guozi had fully considered Yang Yi's restrictions and Ding Xiang's pocket. This. Ding Xiang took it and somewhat clumsily fiddled with it. Turn it on here. Guozi reached under the base and turned on the switch. Suddenly, the small light under the base lit up, shining the crystal ball. Guozi took it again and shook it. The white snowflakes inside slowly fluttered, creating a romantic atmosphere. And inside the crystal ball, a man and a woman were hugging and kissing each other in this romantic atmosphere. This looks pretty good. Ding Xiang felt that she liked it a little. The main thing is that the meaning is good. I heard that Brother Yang and Sister Murphy have not registered their marriage. You can make a small card and write a blessing, wishing Sister Murphy and Brother Yang to grow old together and live happily ever after. I guarantee that Sister Murphy will love this gift of yours. Guozi laughed. Brother Yang and Sister Murphy have not registered their marriage. Ding Xiang was shocked, she did not dare to believe it. Those two already had a child. It's normal, celebrities. It's normal to have a secret marriage. Guozi waved his hand indifferently. Then when you become a big actor in the future, will you also have a secret marriage? Ding Xiang keenly grasped Guozi's loophole and asked. Guozi was a little embarrassed. How can I have a secret marriage? If I meet a girl that I like, I promise to announce to the world that I love her and let the world witness our happiness. Guozi felt that men should not be afraid. Then I'll buy this gift. Ding Xiang completely ignored his lofty words. Holding the crystal ball, she hesitated for a moment and made up her mind. Chapter 260. Yesterday you went to Harbor City. How was the talk with Tianxiang and Golden Age? Fu Jun asked the two people in charge of his supplier department when he came to the meeting early in the morning. After communicating with Yang Yi last time, Fu Jun put down his previous achievements and once again immersed himself in the ever-changing tide of the internet. Opening up new sales channels in the recording industry was not a small challenge. Not only did Fu Jun send out his capable subordinates, but he also personally dealt with various record companies and distributors. Tianxiang's Mao Su's attitude was average, but their president who said that he hoped to talk to you face to face. I think there is still a glimmer of hope. President Chui of Golden Age basically agreed to our conditions, but the person in charge of the negotiation with Golden Age hesitated and said, President Chui also asked about one thing. They are very optimistic about the development of Sahara and asked if you want financing. Fu Jun frowned slightly. Although he did not need financing for the time being, because Sahara's profitability was not bad at the moment, Fu Jun still had to think about this issue seriously. The development of Sahara's online shopping mall happened to be in the golden period. It was on the fast track of development. In addition, the online banking had just been released, so competitors had not noticed this cake yet. It could develop steadily. However, if he did not seize this opportunity to quickly occupy market share and establish a competitive advantage, when competitors reacted, Sahara's online shopping mall would fall into a frenzy of competition and would not have the time to expand. Obviously, Sahara's development was not fast enough, and this speed was also limited by the investment of funds. The internet industry was a world where the speed of burning money was the fastest. However, if he wanted financing, Fu Jun had to consider whether the remaining shares in his hands were enough for him to control the company. At the moment it was 51%, which was a very embarrassing number. If he had more shares in his hands, Fu Jun would definitely not hesitate to take out some financing now. Back then, he had sold 49% of his shares to Yang Yi for 5 million. Now, no matter how he looked at it, it was a losing deal. Of course, Fu Jun was still very clear-headed and was not blinded by money. He also knew that if Yang Yi had not pointed out these paths for him, his original Sahara online bookstore would still be in a half-dead state. Okay, I know about this. I'll discuss it with Director Yang later. Fu Jun said. There's also President Hu from Tianxiang. Help me make an appointment with him on Friday. I'll go to Harbor City to meet with President Hu. Yes, sir. His subordinates all nodded, then quickly packed up their notebooks and left. Sahara was on the fast track. All of them had to buck up and keep up with the company's development. Otherwise, when the company expanded in the future, they were not capable enough. Fu Jun would also harden his heart and hire outside executives. Fu Jun, on the other hand, was free now. He turned on his laptop excitedly and logged into the Weibo webpage to browse. Ever since Yang Yi introduced micro-broadcasting to him, Fu Jun not only promoted it in the company, but he also promoted it to some of his clients. He also became addicted to micro-broadcasting. Although micro-broadcasting did not have a lot of content provided by VIPs and did not have any particularly interesting functions, Fu Jun and many white-collar workers who worked in front of the computer were fascinated by the fact that they could check the status of the people they followed. On the one hand, micro-broadcasting could kill some of their boring spare time at work. On the other hand, it could also satisfy their abnormal desire to peep. They wanted to see what others were doing and what their status was today. Did they go to a restaurant? Or did they kneel on the keyboard? Or did they meet some weird people who did not even give them 100 yuan? Peeping in front of the computer was just like gossiping. It was addictive. Fu Jun just thought of Yang Yi, so he clicked on Shi's chef in the list of people he followed. He opened Yang Yi's homepage to see what interesting things this guy's daughter had done in kindergarten today, or what delicious food Yang Yi made. Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting was always about these things. He was a complete daughter lover. Seeing that he was still playing there, the secretary came over and poured some tea for him. Xiaohong, hey, let me ask you a question. Do you usually play micro-broadcasting? Fu Jun suddenly asked, startling the little secretary. Yes, boss. After you recommended it, I registered. Now the little secretary was quick to speak and said it out loud. But after saying it, she became nervous. She was afraid that Fu Jun would want to share micro-broadcasting with her. There were some comments about her boss that had not been deleted yet. However, fortunately, Fu Jun did not have this idea. He knew the principle of being a boss well. He did not integrate into the circle of his employees and gave them some space. Then tell me, what's so interesting about micro-broadcasting? Fu Jun excitedly took out an exchange voucher from his pocket and said, say something new. If it's good, boss will reward you with a seafood buffet. The little secretary cheered up and thought carefully. Then she said, I think micro-broadcasting is actually similar to blogging. But it's more interesting than blogging because it has a word limit. We send a micro-broadcasting message. It's almost the same as sending a text message. Well, go on. Fu Jun nodded thoughtfully. After all, we're not writers. No one can often write a long article and post it on a blog. And like my own blog, I can't even open it once a year. Not to mention writing, just seeing such a long article gives me a headache. The little secretary said, embarrassed, and stuck out her tongue and said, Of course, boss, I'm not saying that I can't read your proposal. Fu Jun waved his hand and did not care. It's true that I don't like blogs, but Weibo is much better. Sometimes I can just write a few sentences and post it. There's no need to consider the length or literary talent. It's like I can say whatever I want to say in my heart. Anyway, I think my friends like it very much after I recommended it to them. The little secretary finished. Very good, very observant. Go, let's go and have a big meal. Fu Jun smiled and handed over the exchange voucher. The benefits that the little secretary talked about were indeed things that Fu Jun had not thought of before. He only considered the advantages in reading, but he did not expect that he would have so many advantages in writing. Micro-broadcasting users are not that many now, but the growth rate is considerable. After Fu Jun sent the happy little secretary away, he secretly thought, if there are enough users and the user's viscosity is enough, advertising on micro-broadcasting will be a very good choice. In that case, micro-broadcasting's development potential was also great. Chapter 261. Wednesday finally arrived. After sending Murphy to work and Shishi to school, Young Yi began to get busy. First, he went to find Xiao Ai and took the birthday gift that Hemo Xiaowan had secretly sent to Murphy from her fans. Then, he took out the flowers, ribbons, flags, and other supplies that he had bought before and began to decorate the living room at home. This was not easy. Although the venue was smaller than the one for Shishi's birthday, Young Yi still spent the whole morning to complete 60% of his plan. The remaining 40% had to be done at night because the balloons would leak if they were placed too early. The curvy ribbons hanging from the sky attracted the attention of Xiao Guai and the others. These little fellows had been causing trouble when Young Yi had started to set them up. Although the 5-month-old British Shorthairs were still a little childish, their limbs and muscles had already developed very well. Even the smallest of them, Xiao Guai, could jump onto a high sofa with a sudden leap. So, they excitedly messed with the ribbons that Yang Yi put aside. When Yang Yi pulled out a ribbon and was about to hang it up, they pounced on him and slapped the tail of the ribbon. They were so excited that they looked like Shishi who was about to go to the amusement park. Fortunately, Yang Yi was no longer a newbie like when he had just started raising cats. He skillfully took out a few catmint dolls and successfully diverted the attention of the 3 little guys. However, in the afternoon, Yang Yi went to get the cake and was not at home. They were brave enough to jump onto the sofa, stand on the armrest, and slap the ribbons that were hanging down. They couldn't grab it either, but they swatted the ribbon up with their claws. Then the 3 of them squatted there and looked up. Their heads swayed, and they seemed to be having a lot of fun. Recently, it was normal for Murphy to work overtime at night. Mo Xiaowan took on the responsibility of sending her home. Yang Yi picked up Shishi and went straight home. Today is Mom's birthday. Daddy bought a big cake for Mommy. When Yang Yi went upstairs, he said to the little girl, "What gift are you going to prepare for Mommy?" After a moment of surprise, the little girl began to worry. She didn't know what gift to prepare. "Papa, can I give my little Red Riding Hood to Mom?" After struggling for a while, the little girl ran over and tugged at her father's clothes while he was shooting balloons. She pouted and said reluctantly, "I'm sorry." She treasured her doll a lot. Every night, she needed Big Bear Cub to accompany her to sleep. She could only fall asleep with Little Red Riding Hood in her arms. No one else was allowed to touch her. "Why did you give me that gift? Mummy won't want your favorite thing." Yang Yi put down the balloon and rubbed the little girl's head lovingly. "Then what should we do?" Shishi looked at her father for help. Her big eyes looked pitiful as she said, "I don't even know what birthday present to buy." "You can draw a picture for Mommy. She will definitely like it," Yang Yi said with a smile. Shishi pouted and was still not satisfied. Then what should I draw?" "Draw whatever you want. Use your imagination to your heart's content." Yang Yi waved his hand and said boldly, "No matter what you draw, Daddy will help you polish it. It will be very beautiful." Yang Yi had played this game with Shishi before. The little girl nodded happily. Then she quickly ran to find her colored crayons and drawing paper. She began to prepare a birthday present for her mother on the small desk. Almost at the same time, a jeep drove into the Jiangnan military camp on the outskirts of Jiangqing City and stopped in front of the military guest house. Before the people in the car got out, there were already several people waiting outside the guest house. There was a big banner hanging at the door of the military guest house. "Welcome to the Military Grand Competition Special Forces Champion for Guidance." However, due to the strict discipline of the military, although there was a big banner hanging, no one was watching. This is the place where Yang Yi gave a speech. Shen Sinyu's lazy voice was heard before she got out of the car. "Shen Sinyu, pay attention to the situation." Luo Zongxing's strict voice was heard. The car door opened. Other than the driver, 3 figures carrying luggage came out one after another. From their appearance, they looked like ordinary soldiers. However, they exuded a strong aura. Why was it that when one got close to them, one would feel like they had met a wolf in the jungle? The special forces of the Zhongnan military camp, Viper's men, came up to them. Among them were the Captain Old Li and Guadabeo, who had fought with Shen Sinyu. "Welcome, welcome. I've been waiting for you for so long, although it is because of Yang Yi." Old Li smiled and came over to shake hands with Luo Zongxing. "Don't mention it. We are also very honored to be able to communicate with Viper. We are brothers in the same unit, so we can learn and improve together." Luo Zongxing was, after all, the captain. While the 2 of them were exchanging greetings, Shen Sinyu and Guadabeo did not beat around the bush. The 2 of them who had fought before appreciated each other and gave each other a fierce bear hug. "Shen Sinyu, I lost to you last time. After coming back, I trained for a month. When can we fight again?" Guadabeo's face was filled with excitement. He could not wait to fight with Shen Sinyu in the martial arts field. "Anytime. But no matter how much you train, you will still be defeated by me." Although Shen Sinyu had a good relationship with Guadabeo, her mouth was unforgiving. Let's talk about it after the fight." Guadabeo was not convinced. "But now is not the time. The leaders are waiting upstairs to welcome you guys." "Isn't it just drinking? I'm good at this." Shen Sinyu patted her chest. "Hey, you guys came together. Who is that? I don't think I saw him last time." Guadabeo pushed Shen Sinyu and pointed at the small man standing behind them like an invisible person. He was not a small man, about 1.7 meters. But compared to Shen Sinyu and Guadabeo, who were 1.8 meters tall, his body was a little petite. Moreover, his personality was very introverted and quiet, unlike Shen Sinyu, who liked to be noisy. He stayed behind last time and did not go to the competition. But you definitely know his name. Have you heard of the Southwest's #1 sniper? Shen Sinyu gave a thumbs up and said proudly for her brother. The Southwest's #1 sniper, Yu Xiaotian. The Yu Xiaotian who won the international sniper competition. Guadabeo, of course, had heard of him. He was shocked and looked at the other person seriously. Of course, winning the competition was not a big deal. Yu Xiaotian was best at providing cover for his teammates on the battlefield. His elusive and accurate bullets could appear at any time to harvest the opponent's soul. Not only did he suppress the opponent's firepower, but he also greatly protected the safety of his teammates during a firefight. But these battle wolves were rarely promoted by Yu Xiaotian. Everyone knew that he was the Southwest's #1 sniper because he won a big award. Feeling Guadabeo's gaze, Yu Xiaotian turned his head and smiled at Guadabeo. But his eagle-like eyes still made Guadabeo shudder. The leader's welcoming party and Viper's people accompanied them. The 3 Battle Wolves members drank a lot and were supported back to the guest house in a drunken state. After taking a shower and lying on the bed, Shen Sinyu sobered up a little. "Master Luo, when are we going to see Yang Yi?" Shen Sinyu looked at Luo Zongxing on the bed next to hers and asked. Yu Xiaotian also turned around and looked at them intently. "There's no rush." Luo Zongxing drank more than the 2 of them and was still a little slurred, but he was sober. "Since you're here for an exchange, you have to do your job well. There will be a day off." "Oh." Chapter 262. Mo Fei was so busy that she even forgot about her birthday. So today, she still didn't get home until 8:30. Mo Xiaowan drove her downstairs. After getting out of the car, Murphy wanted to say goodbye to Mo Xiaowan, but she saw Mo Xiaowan turn off the engine and get out of the car. "Xiaowan, you can just drop me off here. Why are you still sending me upstairs? We're already at the door. It's safe," Murphy said in amusement. Mo Xiaowan sent out the text message she had prepared a long time ago, then hid the phone in her hand. She chuckled and said, "Sis, are you in such a hurry to chase me away so that you can spend some time alone with brother-in-law?" Why do you always talk about this? Murphy's face was a little red. She said angrily, You think about this every day. Why don't you hurry up and find a boyfriend? What's so good about men? Hey, I don't want to talk about it. I came down because I need to go to the toilet. Sis, hurry up and take me to the toilet. Mo Xiaowon grabbed Murphy's hand and shouted. The nearest toilet was the one in the coffee shop, but Ding Xiang was dragged away to be a spectator today. The coffee shop was not open, so Murphy took Mo Xiaowon upstairs. Why is there no one at home? Murphy walked up the stairs and saw that it was dark and quiet upstairs. She was a little surprised. Hurry up and turn on the lights. Sis, I can't see anything. So creepy. Mo Xiaowon shouted from behind. She deliberately raised her voice, but Murphy did not notice that something was wrong. She thought that the girl was afraid. I'll turn on the lights. Murphy did not suspect anything. She felt the switch on the dark wall with ease and turned it on. Pa! As the light flashed, a louder sound suddenly came from behind Murphy. It was so sudden that Murphy jumped in fright. She panicked and quickly grabbed Mo Xiaojuan's arm. Happy birthday! Happy birthday, Mom! Following Yang Yi's blessings were Shi's cheerful cries. The little girl had been hiding with her father on the sofa, covering her mouth. She couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. After Murphy's eyes adjust a little, she can clearly see the colorful pieces of paper flying in the air. She also sees the culprit in Yang Yi's hand, the empty canister of fireworks, and her daughter who is jumping excitedly and laughing with her face red. Although she understood what was going on, Murphy was still in a state of shock. She turned to look at Mo Xiaowon. Sure enough, that lass was laughing secretly. Surprise! Mo Xiaowon waved her arms exaggeratedly and said to Murphy with a grin, Sis, happy birthday! No wonder she wanted to follow him. Murphy rolled her eyes. You guys actually kept me in the dark. And Mo Xiaowon, you guys didn't even tell me it was my birthday. It's to give you a surprise. We prepared for more than a week. In order to keep it a secret, we didn't dare to tell Shi before today. Yang Yi walked up and put a birthday crown on Murphy's head. You scared me. You have to compensate me. Murphy pouted and hammered Yang Yi's chest with her little fist. Okay, I'll compensate you. You can say whatever you want today. Yang Yi smiled gently. Murphy hasn't thought of how to get Yang Yi to compensate her. She first put this bad guy aside and let him clean up the shredded paper on the floor. She was now entangled by Shi. The little girl excitedly came over with her present. Mama, I prepared a birthday present for you. She was wearing a little hat that looked like an ice cream cone. She looked very cute. She handed over her present, and her big eyes showed some nervousness and expectation. You must like it. Although her father had touched up her present, written a line of words, and helped her frame it with cardboard and put it in a gift box, Shi was still not very confident. Shi's birthday present for Mom. As long as it's from Shi, no matter what it is, Mom will like it. Murphy was very happy. After all, it was the first birthday present from Shi. She treasured it and couldn't bear to open it. However, Mo Xiaowon, who liked to watch the fun, egged her on. Open it and see. She thought that her mother didn't know how to open it. She kindly reached out her little hand to help untie the ribbon. It's opened like this. Pull it. The present was opened. There was a painting in the box. Murphy was a little surprised. She thought that the little girl should have gone out with her father to buy a present in such a hurry. However, it was expected. Shi's drawing skills were taught by her father. In the painting, the little girl drew a lot of flowers, and then there was a long river with 3 people walking next to it. Although it was not concrete, it was not difficult for Mo Fei to guess that Cici was drawing their family of 3. Yang Yi didn't teach Shi those detailed drawing skills now because he didn't want to stifle his daughter's imagination. However, he taught Shi some tricks of composition so that Shi could better express the artistic conception she wanted to express. This is Shi, this is Mom, and this is Papa. The little girl came over and introduced them. And this is us taking a walk holding hands. It's beautiful. Murphy said sincerely. Mom likes this birthday present very much. Really? She held her little hands in surprise and looked at her mother. Course. Murphy put the painting aside, picked up the little girl, and kissed her fragrant little face. Hee 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 hee. The little girl laughed with satisfaction. Mo Xiaowan picked up the painting and looked at it carefully. She made a fuss and shouted, "Wow, there's a poem on it. It's the beautiful scenery of Jiangnan. It's the season of falling flowers." Mo Xiaowan said as she sighed with emotion. This must be written by brother-in-law. The words are not bad, and the poem is also quite suitable for the scenery. It's the season of falling flowers. It's the season of falling flowers. You don't study when you're studying. When is the season of falling flowers called autumn? Murphy corrected. The season of falling flowers usually refers to the end of spring. The reason why Murphy could make such a clear judgment was because she also contacted Yang Yi. When they met again, it was the end of spring and the beginning of summer. I don't care. Anyway, this poem written by brother-in-law is very good. It's especially suitable for this painting. Mo Xiaowan shouted. Murphy had a lot of presents. One side was piled with gifts from fans, and the other side was gifts from Mo Xiaowan, Ding Xiang, Guozi, and the others. Yang Yi's gift was a little big, so it was first hidden in the study. Ding Xiang and Guozi were pulled away by the school to attend a lecture, so they can't come. They asked me to pass on their blessings to you. Yang Yi said as he watched Murphy opening the gifts from fans. The gifts from the hardcore fans were basically perfume, cosmetics, or beautiful clothes. They couldn't attract Shi's attention. The little girl looked at them for a while and felt bored. She went to pester her father to take out a cake to eat. Wait a moment, your mother still has to blow out the candles. Yang Yi comforted the little girl. Gotcha. Mo Xiaowan took a picture of Murphy sitting on the carpet opening the gift. What are you doing? Murphy didn't understand. She asked in astonishment as she opened the gift. Taking a picture. When we get back, I'll send you micro-broadcasting. Mo Xiaowan said excitedly. After Yang Yi taught her how to register for Murphy's micro-broadcasting, she threw it to Mo Xiaowan. She rarely played with it. On the other hand, Mo Xiaowan was very interested and often updated Murphy's micro-broadcasting. Of course, Mo Xiaowan still knew that big stars needed to keep a distance from their fans to maintain a sense of mystery. So, she basically posted Murphy's schedule and work status. The photo she took today was the only photo of Murphy's daily life. It was mainly to thank the fans who congratulated Murphy on her birthday. Right now, there weren't many people using micro-broadcasting, but Mo Xiaowan liked to see the number of fans growing day by day. It was like watching Murphy grow step by step. Yang Yi looked at it and shook his head. He stood up and went to get the cake and candles. However, Murphy didn't plan to open all the gifts. She picked out a few cosmetics and beautiful clothes. Then she said to Mo Xiaowan, I'll keep these and give them to Ding Xiang. You can share the rest with the people in the company. Mo Xiaowan agreed without hesitation. This wasn't the first time. When stars received gifts from fans, they basically handled it this way. Chapter 263. She opened the remaining 3 presents, leaving Yang Yi's present as a suspense. She was about to enter the most important part of the birthday party, which was also the part that she looked forward to the most. Blowing out the candles and eating the cake. Turn off the lights, quickly turn off the lights. The little girl giggled and ran back from the kitchen early. She squeezed into her mother's arms and ordered Mo Xiaowan. The lights dimmed, leaving only a few small lights on. Yang Yi pushed the cake on a small cart and slowly walked out of the kitchen. There were 31 candles on the cake, and the bright candlelight lit up the surroundings. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. Yang Yi was still singing the birthday song as he walked to Murphy. Murphy looked at so many candles, then raised her head and pursed her lips as she stared at Yang Yi. However, it was a little dark, so he couldn't see the expression on her face. Wow, so many candles. Mom, I want to blow them with you. She gestured with her small hands. Just a little, okay? Of course, Mom can't blow out so many candles at once. She, come and blow them with Mom. Murphy couldn't help but complain. Your papa is really too much. Why did he put so many candles? 3 is enough. Won't you be 31 years old after this birthday? Why only 3 candles? Yang Yi said stupidly. Oh, 3 candles makes sense. But she has 4 candles, and you only have 3 candles. Doesn't that make you look younger than she? Murphy rolled her eyes and sighed helplessly. It was really impossible to communicate with a straight man. At a certain age, which woman didn't care about her age? This bastard didn't even have any sense to say it out loud. Really? Tonight, no, she wouldn't sleep with him for the rest of the week. She thought that her mom had already started sighing. The little girl anxiously pulled her mother and said, Mom, no, you haven't made a wish yet. You have to make a wish before you can blow out the candle. Yes, make a wish. Mo Shaowan was waiting for the lights to be turned on. She called out from afar. Sis, you have to make that wish so that your album will go platinum in the future. Murphy ignored her. She listened to her daughter's words and cupped her fists. She closed her eyes and began to make a wish. What should I wish for? If it were a few months ago, Murphy would have made 2 wishes. One was for she to grow up healthily and happily, and the other was for her music career to be smooth sailing without too much trouble. However, now that she had Yang Yi standing behind her and supporting her, Murphy was more confident in her future. Thus, Murphy wanted to change her second wish. Thank God for letting me meet a man who loves me so much, dotes on me and supports me. I hope that Yang Yi will always be healthy and happy. Finally, please allow me to be a little greedy and make a third wish. I hope that my love with Yang Yi will always be like this. I don't ask for a better or happier life. I just hope that there will never be any changes and that we will be blissful just like this. Murphy closed her eyes and made a wish very seriously. Took a long time. She was a little anxious from waiting. The little girl secretly poked at the cake and stuck out her little tongue to lick the cream on her fingers. It was cold, sweet, and super delicious. She wanted to eat it quickly. Fortunately, Murphy finished making her wish in time and blew out the candles with her. Poof, poof. Amidst the sound of she's saliva, Murphy blew out the candles a few times before she finally blew out all the candles. Mo Shaowan could finally turn on the lights. The next step was to cut the cake and eat it. The little girl couldn't wait to push out her little desk and sat on it, asking her mother to bring it to her. Originally, they were going to eat the cake on the coffee table, but she wasn't tall enough. She couldn't reach it sitting down, and it was difficult to eat it standing up. Mo Shaowan sat on the carpet casually, not caring about her image at all. Like she ate the cake until her nose was stained with cream. Brother-in-law, where's your present? Mo Shaowan urged. Quickly take it out. Let's see what it is. This was supposed to be the last program. Yang Yi smiled, but he still went to the study to carefully bring it over and placed it on the coffee table. It was a very exquisite piece of woodwork. Yang Yi had personally designed and carved it. The first thing that entered her eyes was a big banyan tree carved out of tree roots. With lush leaves stuck to it, it looked somewhat similar. I want to see it too. She couldn't sit still. She tried her best to take a big bite of the cake. White cream covered the edge of her mouth. Then, she ran over impatiently and squeezed beside her father to watch. Look here. Yang Yi held a small flashlight, pushed aside the leaves of the banyan tree, and shone it in. There's a treehouse here. The little girl first moved her small head over, opened her big eyes and stared at him intently. The treehouse was very big, and there was a circle of fences outside. Murphy was wondering what the winding stairs were. The treehouse was the part that Yang Yi had carved the most carefully. Although it was not as big as a palm, the details inside were very well done. The small windows and doors that could be pushed and pulled, and even the fences outside were exquisitely made. It was as if this was a world of little people. Mo Fei was stunned by what he saw. However, Mo Shaowan was a little puzzled and asked, "Brother-in-law, what is the meaning of this birthday gift that you gave my sister?" Yang Yi smiled and said, "Meaning? That's not it, but Murphy said that when she was young, she liked to play in the treehouse built by her father, so I wanted to recreate the scene of her childhood for her." Actually, at that time Murphy and Yang Yi were chatting. Murphy said that she was a little naughty when she was young. When Murphy heard Yang Yi's words, her guess was confirmed. She looked at Yang Yi with blurred eyes, and her heart was full of gratitude. Not only because of the small treehouse but also because Yang Yi remembered what she said, and also because of Yang Yi's efforts. "Thank you, Yang Yi. I like it very much." Murphy gently bit her lower lip. "What are you thanking me for? As long as you like it." Yang Yi smiled slightly. In Murphy's heart, she had secretly dispelled the complaint that Yang Yi did not understand the situation. For the sake of this treehouse, the punishment of that week, cancel it for him. "I like it too. It's so beautiful. Papa, I want it too." She looked at it eagerly. The little girl felt that it was like a fairy tale world, and it was very beautiful. She pulled her father's sleeve and whispered, "This is also Shishi's. Although it's a gift from Papa to Mom, Mom's gift is also Shishi's, so it's also Shishi's." Murphy held her daughter and said with a smile, "Really?" She was very surprised. "Of course." Murphy lovingly wiped the little girl's mouth with a tissue. Then I still want to eat the cake. I haven't finished it yet." The little girl struggled out and ran back with a bell-like laughter. However, Mo Shaowan was not satisfied. She cried, "Hey, brother-in-law, it's already the last program? Is there more?" Yang Yi was also confused at this time. "Didn't I ask you to prepare a special program?" Mo Shaowan asked. "Isn't this one?" Yang Yi pointed to the gift on the table. Mo Shaowan covered her head and helplessly said, "Brother-in-law, you're Mu Xiang. I asked you to prepare a special program. Of course it's to let you write a new song for my sister. Just like the 'Just Happened to Meet You' that you sang for my sister before. It's very good." Yang Yi rubbed his nose. He really didn't think about this matter. Previously, he was wholeheartedly focused on the extremely complicated banyan tree and the small wooden house. However, if he didn't think about it, couldn't he think about it now? He had so many songs in his head, so it wouldn't be difficult to pick a song to sing. Murphy, however, helped him out of the predicament. "Shaowan, don't talk nonsense. How can it be so easy to write a song? Needs inspiration. Yang Yi, don't worry about her. I'm already very happy today's birthday. And you even prepared such a good gift." No, just now I was teasing you guys." Yang Yi smiled and interrupted Murphy's comfort. "Actually, I did prepare a special program." "Really prepared?" I knew it. "Brother-in-law, you definitely won't let me, my sister, down." Mo Shaowan excitedly shouted, Quickly sing it. What new song did you write for my sister?" Chapter 264. Yang Yi took the guitar and then moved a chair to sit in front of the TV. He propped his right leg up on the guitar and faced Murphy and the others who were sitting on the sofa. Cece, who was at the side, was still trying her best to bury her head in her big cake, smacking her lips non-stop. However, the little girl's big eyes looked over and curiously looked at her father. "You really wrote a song for me?" Seeing Yang Yi's posture, Murphy dizzily reacted. She couldn't hold back the surprise in her heart and asked, "Of course. Want to sing me for you?" Seeing Murphy and the others' confused expression, Yang Yi smiled. "It's the title of this song. Yo! Want to sing me for you, tse?" Mo Shaowan elbowed Murphy and winked at her ambiguously. "Stop fooling around, listen carefully." Murphy was a little embarrassed and said angrily. Yang Yi smiled slightly and began to play his guqin. The prelude was relatively gentle at the beginning. The slightly heavy but pleasant sound of the guitar slowly opened the curtain. But it was only a short section. Yang Yi lightly tapped the fingerboard a few times. When he plucked the strings again, it was as if he suddenly changed from walking slowly to running 100 meters. The rhythm suddenly became faster. Murphy was a little surprised. She looked at Yang Yi in surprise. The songs he wrote before didn't seem to have such a big change in rhythm. But Murphy still calmed down and listened carefully. Because the melody was still very beautiful, it was the first time she listened carefully to the emotions expressed by the melody. There seemed to be some cheerfulness, some joy. Yang Yi paused for a moment and opened his mouth to sing. "Want to sing me for you?" The melody started again, but this time it was gentle and didn't overpower the main melody. This was the first time Mo Shaowen heard Yang Yi sing. When he just opened his mouth, the deep magnetic voice made her scalp tingle. It was too good to listen to. In the original song, this opening was a female part, but Yang Yi didn't show off his skills for the sake of showing off. He lowered the pitch and changed it to a completely male tune. Take advantage of the fact that you're still young like a flower. Let the flowers bloom as much as you want. Decorate your years and my sprouts. The lyrics did fit the mood of the female voice, but Murphy did not react. She looked into Yang Yi's eyes and felt the love in his eyes. It was thick and fragrant like a flower. Who can replace you? Love to your heart's content while you're young. My dearest person, the journey is long. Let's be together. The lyrics were almost sweet. Mo Shaowen, who was listening by the side, was actually a little distracted. After all, she was not as infatuated with music as Murphy. As she listened, she suddenly realized that this song seemed to have nothing to do with her. Then, she glanced at her cousin. Seeing her and Yang Yi looking at each other affectionately, she suddenly felt that she shouldn't be sitting there beside Murphy. She was like a huge light bulb that was tens of thousands of watts. And the kind that was blinding but still ignored. Damn, why did I say that? Mo Shaowen was a little regretful. Isn't this because I didn't eat enough dog food? I'll sing me for you. Give me your pure and innocent smile. Yang Yi suddenly raised the tempo and voice. The joy in his voice seemed to be raised like scattered grains. He suddenly stopped and reached out his left hand. Murphy understood Yang Yi's meaning without rehearsing. Her face was filled with happiness. She walked over and took Yang Yi's hand. Let's do it together. Yang Yi took back his hand, still holding the strings, and looked at her encouragingly. Murphy was a little surprised but still nodded. The melody started again, and Yang Yi hummed softly. I'll sing me for you. I'll sing me for you. Murphy also hummed, but she was very talented. She changed the accents herself and sang in a way that was different from Yang Yi's. It was like a harmony. I'll use my burning feelings to move you, okay? Time is worth remembering, nostalgic, shy, blushing face. Yang Yi didn't stop. He continued singing, and Murphy swayed gently beside him, humming softly. Who can replace you? Yang Yi looked up into Murphy's eyes as he sang. Regardless of age, this was the best confession. The woman also lowered her head and looked at him tenderly. She hummed and smiled. Mo Shaowen was also looking at them, especially Murphy. Her cousin's slightly red face had a sweet smile, like a blooming peony. Mo Shaowen understood Murphy too well. When did she usually smile like this? She was smiling like flowers. This wasn't just happiness, but also joy from the bottom of her heart. Her eyes were filled with love that couldn't be hidden and didn't need to be hidden. High mountains and flowing rivers meet soulmates. The so-called harmony between the zither and the luan and the phoenix were probably talking about Yang Yi and Murphy, right? The road is long, let's be together. When Mo Shaowen came back to her senses, she realized that Yang Yi had finished singing the song. Although Murphy hadn't learned it yet, she also hummed along to the end. Mo Shaowen waved her arms to vent, then clapped her hands. Brother-in-law, why do you always sing so well? I actually didn't know. She didn't know when she finished eating the cake. The little girl felt that Auntie Mo Shaowen was questioning her father, so she immediately stood up unhappily. With a bulging belly, she proudly said, My papa has always been very good. He can even sing let un go, let un go. Although Young Yi was afraid that his daughter would reveal the secret, he rarely sang for Shishi, but the little girl still remembered it clearly. What? Mo Xiaowan asked in surprise. Let un. Murphy looked at Young Yi with her beautiful eyes. Young Yi, you haven't sung this song for me. I heard Shishi say that this is an English song that you sing. The night when she exposed Young Yi was too crazy. Murphy forgot to ask about it. Only when Shishi mentioned it did she remember. Wow, brother-in-law also knows English songs. Don't tell me it was also written by you. Mo Xiaowan was really surprised this time. He also knows many foreign languages. What's so strange about knowing English? Murphy explained, but she still looked at Young Yi. I wrote it. Previously, when I was telling Shishi the fairy tale Frozen, I suddenly wrote the song. At first it was a Chinese version called Let It Go. But later I felt that the Chinese version was a bit lacking, so I tried to change it to English lyrics, so it was called Let It Go. Young Yi smiled and said, Quick, quick, sing it. Mo Xiaowan excitedly clapped her hands. Let's listen to the Chinese version first, then the English version. Actually, it's better for Murphy to sing this song. The Chinese version can be sung next time. I'll teach Murphy how to sing it. Now I'll sing the English version for you. Young Yi gently played the guitar. The familiar melody immediately made Shishi excited, and the little girl also moved to her father's side. Let it go. Young Yi sang the first line, and Shishi immediately sang along. Young Yi lowered his voice and let the little girl's pure, tender, but very pleasant voice ring in the living room. He only played a little. Of course, Shishi only knew these 2 lines, but to be able to sing these 2 lines, Shishi was very happy. The little girl ran over with a smile and threw herself into her mother's arms. Young Yi then raised his voice and continued singing. He didn't use a falsetto, so naturally it wasn't as high-pitched as the original, but Young Yi's pronunciation was clear, and Murphy and the others saw his English standard. Chapter 265. Murphy and Mo Xiaowan both understood English, so they were also carefully listening to the meaning of the lyrics. However, Mo Xiaowan had never read the story of Frozen before, so she was a little confused by the words kingdom and queen in the lyrics. Just as Let's Go was singing to its heart's content, a voice suddenly joined in. Although it wasn't loud, it obviously ruined the rhythm. Young Yi stopped and looked towards the source of the voice. Mo Xiaojuan's reaction was still half a beat slower. She hurriedly took out her phone from the bag next to her, but it was not her phone that she took out, but Murphy's. She usually carried Murphy's phone, but Mo Xiaowan was so focused on celebrating Murphy's birthday today that she forgot to return it to her. Mo Xiaowan glanced at the caller ID on the phone and jumped up from the sofa in fright. Sister, it's Uncle. Uncle. Murphy's father. Murphy quickly took the phone. She stretched out her finger and shushed Young Yi, then turned around and went into the bedroom with the phone. She only picked it up when the door was closed. Young Yi was a little confused. He did not understand for a moment. Why did Murphy have to hide to answer her father's call? Fortunately, Mo Xiaowan explained to Young Yi in a low voice for Murphy. Sure, brother-in-law, don't speak loudly. It's my sister's father calling from the United States. Grandpa. Shishi's eyes lit up and she called out happily. However, she also thought of her mother's advice before, so she shyly stuck out her little tongue. She pulled her father's hand and motioned for him to lower his head. Young Yi lowered his head. The little girl moved closer to her father's ear and said with a sweet smell like cake, Grandpa is fierce and doesn't like Papa. Mom said not to tell Grandpa because Grandpa will beat Papa. Why? Young Yi was quite surprised. He hadn't thought too much about it. Why? Brother-in-law, don't you know? When Mo Xiaowan heard Shi and Young Yi's conversation, she could not help but complain. You made my sister pregnant. The day she went back to America, Uncle was so angry that he smashed the cabinet and took out his shotgun. He wanted to cross the ocean to kill you. Fortunately, it was my sister who stopped him. Moreover, after Cece was born, he stopped a little. Mo Xiaowan snorted. But you don't know this, but after my sister came back to the country, Uncle kept asking me if she came back to look for you. First, he was very diligent. I think he still wants to kill you. When Mo Xiaowan said this, her tone was a little like before. She was mocking and taking pleasure in his misfortune. She was probably venting her resentment towards Yang Yi in the past, and secretly feeling good about it. Shishi also nodded. She whispered, Grandpa likes Shishi and Mom very much, but he will still be fierce. Papa, don't let Grandpa find out. Listening to Mo Xiaowan and Shishi talking one after another, Yang Yi was silent. He felt a little helpless about this situation. Who was to blame? It seemed that no one could be blamed except for that night in the maple forest. Who knew why it was so accurate and shot the soul? But he could not blame that night. Without that night, there would be no cute Shishi. At this moment, Murphy came out. She looked at Yang Yi apologetically, then covered the phone and said to Shishi, Grandpa wants to talk to you. Don't tell Grandpa that we are at your papa's house. Murphy lowered her voice and whispered in her daughter's ear. Then, she handed the phone to the little girl and asked her to answer the phone in the bedroom. Murphy was also there to accompany her. At this moment, only Yang Yi and Mo Xiaowan were left in the living room. They looked at each other and the atmosphere became awkward. There was a little noise. Yang Yi turned his head and looked. The three kittens were playing with the empty gift boxes on the ground. When they saw the boxes, they lost interest in the ribbons. They saw the bigger little gray trying to get into Guazi's gift box. The box was a little small, but it still put its feet in one by one and then crawled down, leaving only a big round head outside. Ahem, brother-in-law. Mo Xiaowan took the initiative to talk to him, which made Yang Yi come back to his senses. Your singing is really good. Your voice is not bad and you can write songs. Why don't you also debut? Become the first artist signed by my sister's studio. Mo Xiaowan was more or less joking, but she was right. If Yang Yi signed the contract now, he would be ahead of Murphy. What's more, opening a husband and wife shop in the entertainment industry. What a beautiful story. Yang Yi shook his head decisively. Pass. I'm not interested. I'll write songs for Murphy and play with the tickets occasionally. That's enough. Okay. Mo Xiaojuan's voice fell, and the atmosphere became awkward again. Fortunately, Shishi and Grandpa didn't talk for too long before Murphy came out with a little girl. Shishi jumped happily and ran to her father to tell him the good news. Papa, Grandpa didn't find out. Don't be afraid. Yang Yi was held by the little girl to comfort him. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Murphy put the phone aside, walked over, and gently explained to Yang Yi. Sorry, it was my father and mother. Because it's my birthday they called me because... Sister, I told them everything just now. I told them that uncle was going to bring a shotgun to trouble brother-in-law. Mo Xiaowan shouted. Murphy was stunned for a moment. She looked at Yang Yi. It's not as exaggerated as Xiaowan said, but he does have some complaints about you. Although we're together now, I haven't thought about how to tell them. The main reason was that Murphy was also a little afraid of her father's bad temper. She was afraid that he would scold Yang Yi. Although Yang Yi's character was gentle, Murphy still knew that he was arrogant deep down. If he couldn't help but have a conflict with her father, Murphy would feel very uncomfortable. Looking at Murphy's nervous and worried appearance, Yang Yi couldn't help but feel pity for her. He stood up, hugged her in his arms and comforted her. It's okay. Take your time. I'm not in a hurry. He also used his finger to lift Murphy's face, looked at her and joked. And even if he finds out, it doesn't matter. If your father is still angry with me, then I'll let him beat me up. Anyway, I'm thick-skinned. He can hit me as much as he wants. I promise I won't fight back. Who told me to make his darling pregnant? Murphy's face was red and she said angrily, It's not that terrible. Later when Shishi was born he was very happy. Let me take my time and slowly talk to him. Let him accept you. Why do you have to fight and kill? You men have bad tempers. With she watching from the side, Murphy was embarrassed to let Yongyi hold her for too long. She quickly pushed him away. Papa hasn't finished singing yet. She was still thinking about Let It Go. She struggled to drag the guitar over. Then continue singing. Yongyi asked with a smile. Wait, I'm going to leave. Mo Xiaowan looked at her watch and yawned. It's almost 10 o'clock. If I don't go back, I won't be able to get up tomorrow. Xiaowan, why don't you stay here tonight? Anyway, there are quite a lot of rooms. Murphy said with concern. It's dangerous to go back so late. Sister, I'm full today. Mo Xiaowan said faintly. Besides, if I stay here, it'll be inconvenient for you and brother-in-law to do anything. I'd better go. It's not too late. There's a car. What nonsense are you talking about? Murphy refused to admit it and said angrily with a red face. Let's not talk about it. Let's go. Mo Xiaowan carried her bag and said goodbye to Yongyi and Shi. Then she rushed downstairs. Then I'll send you down. Xiaowan, be careful when driving at night. Murphy said as she walked. I know. Mo Xiaojuan's voice came from the stairs. But it's you and brother-in-law who should be careful when driving at night, right? Chapter 266. In the blink of an eye, it was the weekend again. Zhongchuan's campus was still very lively. Although the students didn't have to go to class, the major clubs still took advantage of the last month of free time before the review week to organize activities. Even if the weather was cold and the north wind was biting cold, it couldn't stop their enthusiasm. Banners and flyers were flying along the way. Guizi rarely had free time. He didn't have any plans at the film club today, so he prepared to go to Yongyi's restaurant to eat and drink. However, not long after he came down from the dormitory, he was stopped by someone. Guizi, you're Guizi, right? The man had greasy slicked-back hair, wore a suit and tie, and looked like a successful person. I am. Why are you looking for me? Guizi looked at the man again and again. He didn't match the various impressions in his mind, so he confirmed that it was a stranger. The man was very enthusiastic. After confirming, he reached out to shake Guizi's hand and then handed over his business card. Hello, I'm a talent scout from Ronghua Agency. You can call me Wengu. Have you heard of Ronghua? We're from Xiongnan. He even gave a thumbs up and looked very proud. Never heard of it, but I think I've heard of your name. This was awkward, but Wengu didn't care. He laughed and said, Our company is very famous. By the way, do you remember the 1,000 Miles Chuanshu group in your school? They were all signed by our company. Oh, it's you guys. Guizi didn't care too much, but seeing that he was sincerely introducing himself to him, he pretended to be enthusiastic and laughed. Yes, it's us. Wengu said. It's also 1,000 Miles Chuanshu. They brought a CD, the CD of your freshman party, and then we discovered your singing talent. That's why we decided to find you and cultivate you into a new star in the pop music industry in the future. Wengu was talking about the future, which was a trap. They wanted to find Guizi, but probably just sign him as a trainee. Guizi didn't understand these twists and turns, but he waved his hand. Sorry to disappoint you. I don't want to develop in the music industry. I'm a man who's going to become an award-winning actor. Why would I become a singer? Guizi was very firm about his goal. Why? How glorious it is to be a singer. Think about it, walking on the street, surrounded by a large crowd, and a large group of female fans rushing to give you gifts and ask about your well-being. Wengu tried to persuade him, exaggerating and bewitching him with his words. There's no reason. It's just that my ambition doesn't lie here. But you have a very high talent in music. Of course, this talent still needs the company to help you turn it into a talent. But if you give up on yourself, it will be a pity. Wengu showed a regretful expression. Forget it, I don't want to be a singer. Guizi waved his hand. However, the talent scout was like a sticky candy. When Gu was still pestering him. Young man, don't limit your future to death. You haven't been a star, and you haven't experienced the glory of being noticed. Why don't you give yourself a chance? Give it a try. Guazi was annoyed by this pestering. He waved his hand and was about to leave. But when Gu still followed him step by step, and his mouth kept nagging. Are you done? Don't bother me. Guazi, who had a good personality, couldn't stand it anymore. He shouted and ran away. Hey, don't go. We can't do business, but we can still be friends. I want to ask you if you have Mu Xiang's contact number. Hey, where is he? He's so fat but he runs so fast. Doesn't make sense. When Gu shouted and wanted to chase after him. But after turning a corner, Guazi disappeared. Upstairs in the physics department, Guazi was secretly looking through the window. When he saw Wen Gu walking away while talking to himself, he breathed a sigh of relief. There's someone who can talk better than me. It's too scary. Guazi patted his chest with some lingering fear. Fortunately, I'm more familiar with the school. After Guazi went downstairs, he changed his path and walked towards the north gate. But not long after, he was grabbed by the shoulder. The little fatty trembled. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he turned around. I said I don't want to be a singer. Just stop pestering me. His voice stopped abruptly because he saw that the person who grabbed him was no longer Wen Gu. It was a brawny man. To be exact, it was 4 men in military uniforms. The one who grabbed him had almost shaved his head, leaving only a little bit of stubble. The muscles on his face made him look fierce. Note 1. But he only looked fierce. The other party looked awkward. At that moment, Guazi felt that this soldier was a little simple and honest. The one who grabbed him was Gua Debao. The other 3 were obviously Luo Zongxing, Shen Xinyu, and Yu Xiaotian, who had taken advantage of the weekend to look for Yang Yi. Gua Debao had volunteered to drive them over. However, Gua Debao, who had been in the army for a long time, suddenly remembered that he only knew that Yang Yi had opened a coffee shop in Jiangchuan. He didn't know the exact location. That was awkward. What was even more awkward was that he braced himself and brought the 3 guests to look for it. Then as they searched, they got lost in the huge campus. In the end, Gua Debao had no choice but to ask someone for directions. Coincidentally, he caught Guazi. In the end, the other party turned around and scolded him. Gua Debao couldn't get angry with an ordinary student. Guazi looked at the other party's awkward appearance and felt embarrassed. He coughed twice. Well, I'm sorry. I mistook you for someone else. Why are you looking for me? Shen Xinyu couldn't stand it anymore. He patted Gua Debao's shoulder and walked forward. He said to Guazi, Excuse me, we're looking for a coffee shop. The name of the coffee shop? I don't know, but the owner's name is Yang Yi. It's in Jiangqing Media University. Do you know where it is? This was the right question to ask. There were tens of thousands of students in Jiangchuan. Only a few knew about Yang Yi. Guazi happened to be one of them. However, Guazi first smiled. Then he stopped smiling and looked at them suspiciously. Why are you looking for a coffee shop whose owner is Yang Yi? A few possibilities flashed through Guazi's mind. Trouble, revenge, or Brother Yang committed a crime and the soldiers came to arrest him. The little fatty even imagined that the 4 of them would kidnap him and tie him up in the woods for a show. They would torture him and interrogate him about Yang Yi's whereabouts. Then he would rather die than surrender. Just as he was fantasizing, Shen Xinyu and his buddies looked at each other happily. Guazi's behavior clearly showed that he knew Yang Yi's whereabouts. It's like this. The 3 of us are Yang Yi's former comrades. We haven't seen him for a long time. It wasn't easy for us to get news of him, so we wanted to visit him, Shen Xinyu explained. So that's what it was. Guazi suddenly understood. He said with slight disappointment, Comrades? Alright, I'm also going to Brother Yang's place. I'll bring you guys along. Chapter 267. On the weekend, the coffee shop was filled with laughter. Because she was on vacation, the shop seemed to be livelier with the little girl around. The early winter in Zhongqing didn't seem so cold anymore. Ha 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 ha. Yang Yi sat in his booth and read quietly. Two little figures ran past him, leaving behind a string of bell-like laughter. Yang Yi was pulled back from his thoughts. He looked at Shi and Lan Exan, smiled and shook his head. Lan Exan was the one who came to play with Shi the most often among her friends. Lan Zhoukai also trusted Yang Yi very much. After a few exchanges, they always felt that they were like brothers in arms. Therefore, a busy man like him couldn't accompany his daughter. Instead of letting Lan Exan stay at home and cry, it was better to leave his daughter with Yang Yi. Anyway, there would be someone to take care of her and serve her well. This wishful thinking couldn't be better. After a while, the two little girls giggled and chased the pitiful little gray, who was running away. Once again they ran past Yang Yi. Yang Yi reached out and caught the two little girls by their waists. He smiled and said, "Run slower, don't fall." The moment Shi and Lan Exan were caught, they pressed down on Yang Yi's big arms and looked at each other and laughed. They laughed so hard that their little bodies went soft. No one knew what they were laughing about. Shi, who didn't have her friends by her side, was a little lady. With her friends by her side, the energetic little girl played like crazy. I know. The little girl couldn't stay by her father's side. Shi and Lan Exan pushed their father's hands away. The two little girls held hands and ran away with a smile. Yang Yi watched them run away to play before he looked away and read his book. Welcome. Another customer came. Recently, the coffee shop's business had been better. It was probably because it was winter. It was very enjoyable to drink a warm cup of tea. Ding Xiang greeted the new customer. He was a student wearing glasses, but the lenses were almost as thick as the bottom of a beer bottle. His clothes were slightly old-fashioned. He wore a rough plaid shirt and grayish-blue cotton pants. He looked exactly like a person in a photo from more than 30 years ago. But Ding Xiang definitely wouldn't agree to say that he was poor. The watch on his wrist and the leather shoes on his feet weren't cheap. He wasn't particularly rich, but he should be in the middle class. He was much better than Ding Xiang in the past. But his taste was probably comparable to the mother of a female celebrity who had participated in the Beijing Olympics. Ding Xiang introduced the coffee in the shop to him, but the boy frowned. He pushed up his glasses, narrowed his eyes, and looked at the menu for a while. Then he said unhappily, "Why is the coffee in your shop so expensive? Compared to Eastgate's coffee, it's a lot more." Ding Xiang had encountered this problem many times. She smiled and patiently explained, "It's like this. Our shop sells freshly ground coffee. It's hand-ground coffee beans that have been roasted." Before Ding Xiang could finish, the boy interrupted, "I'm talking to you about the price. Why are you talking to me about freshly ground coffee? Tell me, do you usually have very few customers?" Ding Xiang was a little stunned. "That's right." The boy didn't wait for Ding Xiang to answer. With a proud face he continued, "I'll analyze the reason for you. Don't be too grateful. Just treat me to a cup of coffee later." He didn't see Ding Xiang's speechless expression at all. According to the bourbon water theorem, forget it. Seems like you don't understand this professional economic term. Anyway, you just need to know that you're doing a student business. But what are you selling? Freshly ground coffee. Of course, it doesn't matter what kind of freshly ground coffee you sell, but in the price range of 10 to 20 yuan, what kind of products do you have that can compete with your competitors for customers in this price range? None. The commotion over there also attracted Yang Yi's attention, but he had no intention of interfering. "It's not a big deal. Let Ding Xiang handle it. We have cupcakes." Ding Xiang couldn't help but say, "I'm talking about coffee. Why are you talking to me about cake?" The boy looked as if he expected better from her. "I'm here to buy coffee, and you're recommending a cake to me. Are you stupid or am I stupid to buy your cake?" Today, the boy acted as if he was an expert and wanted to persuade Ding Xiang to sell instant coffee. He talked for a long time. Ding Xiang's personality was good. If it were someone else. Although what you said makes sense, I'm really sorry. Our shop only sells instant coffee. Only freshly ground coffee. Ding Xiang was dizzy from his words and almost got confused. This is the rule set by our boss. Stupid and stubborn. You can't be taught. You can't be taught. The boy looked at Ding Xiang with disdain and shook his head, but he still took out the money. Forget it. Give me a cup of that 30 yuan mocha. I don't have time to go to East Gate. By the way, I've told you so much. Did you get any inspiration? Ouch. The boy who wanted to take the opportunity to ask for a discount suddenly cried out as if someone had stepped on his foot. He turned around and lowered his head. Through his thick glasses, he glared at Shi, who was still a little dizzy and sitting on the ground. It turned out that Shi and Lan Xan were chasing each other and ran past. In a moment of carelessness, Shi bumped into his leg. Hey, I'm sorry. Shi, are you hurt? Ding Xiang hurriedly ran out. She squatted down and picked up Shi from the ground while apologizing to the boy. Is it okay to be sorry? My calf almost got a cramp from the collision. The boy's ferocious face made Shi and Lan Xen a little scared. Lan Xen nervously leaned toward Shi, who was leaning in Ding Xiang's arms. I'm sorry. Shi mumbled softly. She felt that she had gotten into trouble. However, she felt a little wronged because of the boy's fierce attitude. Moreover, the little girl's butt was already hurting from the fall. Now she was scared, nervous, and worried. She pursed her lips and was about to cry. Yang Yi originally didn't want to pay attention to what was going on here. He felt that the boy was a clown and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. However, Ding Xiang's cry attracted his attention from reading again. Shi fell. Where did this little girl come from? Don't you have any manners? The boy was a little unforgiving. He pointed his finger and scolded Shi. Then he turned his attention to Ding Xiang. What kind of place is a coffee shop? It's a quiet, elegant, healthy, and hygienic place. How could you allow these uneducated little girls and these smelly cats to come in? I don't think your shop will last long, right? Xiao Guai is not smelly. Shi was already sobbing softly. She turned her head to her sister Ding Xiang and argued. You keep saying uneducated. Have you been living on a dog's body for so many years? No, I can't insult a dog. Yang Yi's voice was cold. Even if it was a cold joke, it wasn't funny at all. His words carried a murderous aura. If you say another word, see if I'll tear your mouth apart. She's my daughter. I can't even bear to scold her. And you're teaching her a lesson for me? Thinking of this, Yang Yi was furious. When he stood up, he fiercely punched the table. A thin crack appeared on the solid wood table. Seeing Yang Yi's burly figure, the boy immediately swallowed the rest of his curses back into his stomach and kept quiet out of fear. Yang Yi walked over. Ignoring him, he squatted down and took Shi into his arms. When he looked at his daughter, the coldness on his face melted. He smiled gently and asked softly, Shi, where did you fall? The little girl felt a lot more at ease in her father's arms. She pouted, touched her little butt and said, My butt hurts. Yang Yi rubbed his daughter's butt and then kissed her little face. He smiled and whispered in her ear in a voice only his daughter could hear. Don't be afraid. Dad will help you vent your anger. No one in this world can be fierce to our Shi. Just when Yang Yi was being gentle with his daughter, the boy breathed a sigh of relief. However, he didn't dare to provoke Yang Yi again. The height and figure of the two were much different. Forget it. I won't argue with you. He turned and walked out of the door, muttering in a low voice. Such a shabby shop will be closed sooner or later. However, Yang Yi's ears were very sharp. He heard everything clearly. However, he wasn't in a hurry to stop him. He walked casually and let the guy run 39 meters first. The boy had already slipped out. Yang Yi pulled Lan Xen over and comforted her. Then, he handed the two little girls to Ding Xiang. Ding Xiang, help me take care of Shi and Xen Er. Brother Yang Yi, what are you going to do? Ding Xiang pulled Yang Yi's hand anxiously. Don't worry. Someone's head is hot because of the cold weather. I'll let him soak in the hot water to calm down. Yang Yi smiled and patted Ding Xiang's hand. Then, he winked at the little girl who had stopped crying but was still crying. Ishi, cover your eyes. Repeat 10 times until 30. Dad will be back soon. She had learned to count from 1 to 30 in kindergarten. The little girl wiped her tears and nodded confusedly. Two, you have to cover your eyes. Yang Yi patted Lan Xin's little head and reminded her that the scene might be very violent and not suitable for children. Then he walked out. Chapter 268. A scream came from the side of the Grand Canal. Don't let go. I won't do it again, I won't do it again. Yang Yi didn't spend much time and effort to catch the guy who scolded his daughter for being uneducated. Then, he easily grabbed his wrist with one hand and lifted him above the Grand Canal. There had been a lot of rain recently, and the water level of the Grand Canal had risen a lot. He could feel the flowing river water not far from his feet through his leather boots, and the bone-chilling cold. As long as Yang Yi let go, he would definitely fall into the river. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants and could only beg for mercy with tears and snot. Actually, he was just a student who liked to talk big. Yang Yi looked at his miserable appearance with a cold face, but he was hesitant. Should he throw him down? If it was when he first came to this world, if someone dared to bully his daughter, Yang Yi would definitely throw him into the river and not pick him up. But in these few months, he had gotten used to the life of an ordinary person, and his heart had been melted by Shi. Yang Yi's personality had changed a lot, and his way of thinking was no longer too extreme. So, he had to consider if it would be troublesome to pick this guy up after throwing him down. Brother Yang, what are you doing? Guizi's voice came from afar. He still let this guy escape. Yang Yi turned his head to look, and his eyes narrowed slightly. His gaze went past Guizi and landed on the 4 people behind him. He recognized Guadabeo at first glance, and then the other 3. Those familiar faces made him quickly find the corresponding memories in the depths of his mind. How did they find me? Of course, with Guadabeo around, the answer was obvious. Count yourself lucky. Next time if you talk nonsense, I'll really let you soak in the soup. Yang Yi picked up the guy who was scared out of his wits and threw him to the side of the grass. He said coldly, "Scram." Yang Yi ignored him and walked towards Guizi and the others without looking back. That guy looked at Yang Yi's back for a few seconds before he came back to his senses. As if he had been granted amnesty. He didn't care that his legs were weak and quickly fled. Big Brother Yang, that person is. Guizi still wanted to speak, but when he saw the expressions on the faces of the soldiers, he tactfully shut his mouth. Guadabeo was fine, but Luo Zongxing, Shen Xinyu, and Yu Xiaotian's eyes reddened when they saw Yang Yi walking towards them with a smile. Of course, with their tanned skin, the redness in their eyes couldn't be seen. They wouldn't cry. Even if they were hit by bullets, they wouldn't shed a tear. Now that they suddenly saw their brothers who fought side by side with them 5 years ago, the memories came flooding back like a tide. For a moment, they were overwhelmed with emotions. Yang Yi looked at the 3 of them. His mood was a little complicated. Although it didn't have much to do with him, the memories were indeed merged. It was as if he had experienced it himself. When he was flipped over, the feelings of comrades who could entrust their lives to each other still affected him. Master Luo Shen Shao. Long time no see. How have you been? Yang Yi paused, but still held back his sadness and forced a smile. Surnamed Yang, you bastard. Shan Sinyu's character couldn't hold back at all. He cursed and rushed forward to give Yang Yi a bear hug. In fact, Yang Yi didn't want to be hugged by men. I thought you were King dead. Yang Yi secretly sighed as he listened to the vulgar words and patted him on the back. He didn't kick this guy away. Instead, he hesitated for a moment and patted him lightly on the shoulder. After letting go, Yang Yi smiled and said to Shen Xinyu, "Looks like your strength hasn't improved in the past 5 years. Bullshit. You're saying I haven't improved. Why don't we have a spar now?" Shen Xinyu was provoked by Yang Yi to the point that his eyes were wide open. He was about to unbutton his jacket. "If you want to spar, wait until we have time." Luo Zongxing pushed Shen Xinyu away. His expression was a little complicated. He smiled bitterly and said, "Yang Yi, I haven't seen you in 5 years. You still don't seem to have changed." Yang Yi read the memories of his predecessor and had his own judgment about some misunderstandings of his predecessor. He hesitated for a moment and took the initiative to give Luo Zongxing a hug. "Master Luo, I haven't changed much, but you look a lot older." Although it couldn't be considered a grudge, Yang Yi was angry because Luo Zongxing didn't protect him. Luo Zongxing also felt guilty for 5 years because of this. Now, with this hug, Luo Zongxing felt Yang Yi's understanding and relief. "Mold. Can't fight anymore. In the past 2 years, I've been participating less and less in frontline missions. I might be retiring from Battle Wolf soon." Luo Zongxing smiled and blinked hard. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were a little wet. Shen Xinyu still didn't understand. He spoke up for Luo Zongxing. "Yang Yi, Master Luo is in the past. You know Master Luo's difficulties, but you might not know. After that person fell from the horse 2 years ago, Master Luo has been helping you apply and finally restored your military status and file." There were such things? Yang Yi was a little surprised, but his heart didn't fluctuate much. After all, his state of mind was different now. He smiled and said, "Okay, let's not talk about the past anymore. We are still brothers in the future." "Yes, brother." Luo Zongxing patted Yang Yi's shoulder. There was still Yu Xiaotian. Yu Xiaotian came this time because he and Yang Yi were partners. Yu Xiaotian was a sniper, and Yang Yi was his wingman. No, he was a spotter. Although Yu Xiaotian's sniping was good, his personal combat value wasn't high. Moreover, he often forgot about his own safety when he was in a killing frenzy. Yang Yi's existence was even more important to protect him and cover his retreat. It could be said that Yang Yi was Yu Xiaotian's life insurance. In Yang Yi's memory, his predecessor was most worried about this guy after he retired. Fortunately, although the two hadn't been partners for 5 years, Yu Xiaotian wasn't killed by the enemy. "Ah Xiao, you are still the same as before, serious in speech and manner." Yang Yi smiled at him. Yu Xiaotian's face was still cold, but he took a step forward and hugged Yang Yi. This guy wasn't tall, and his head only reached Yang Yi's chest, but he hugged Yang Yi's waist tightly. Good brothers, everything was understood without words. Originally, Yang Yi thought that his heart wouldn't have any ripples because in his previous life, he didn't have any brothers, only himself. However, when he hugged these 3 brothers who had fought together, his heart was touched. It wasn't because of the influence of his predecessor's soul imprint. Yang Yi could clearly feel that he was really happy and moved by this pure comradeship, a brotherhood that was thicker than blood. It turned out that he didn't want to be alone, and he also longed to have brothers who could entrust their lives to him. No, they were his brothers. Gua de Bao stood at the side with his arms wide open. After waiting for a long time, Yang Yi didn't come, so he awkwardly scratched his head. Yang Yi saw him, laughed heartily, and went over to hug him. However, the other Guazi refused to be hugged by men. Chapter 269. Seeing his old comrades, Yang Yi naturally couldn't let them suffer outside. He walked in front and invited Luo Zongxing and the others to his coffee shop to continue catching up. As soon as he opened the door, the little girl, whose tears had been wiped away by Sister Ding Xiang, ran over in surprise and threw herself into her father's arms. However, she soon pouted and complained. "Papa, you lied." "Papa. Dad." Shen Xinyu, who was following behind, was shocked by this call. She looked at Luo Zongxing and Yu Xiaotian in surprise. Yang Yi had a child. However, it was not particularly strange that he had a child. Not everyone in the army was single. For example, Master Luo was married, but he didn't have a child yet. What Shen Xinyu found strange was that Yang Yi's daughter was a little old. She looked like she was 5 or 6 years old. "You said you would give in to me. I said dozens of times that you would come back, but you didn't come back." The little girl turned her worry for her father into complaint. She hugged her father's neck tightly and said. After saying that, the little girl saw that there were a lot of people behind her father. She shyly shrunk her head, but now she was a lot bolder. Her big eyes rolled around, sizing up these people in green clothes. "It's my fault. I came back late because I met these uncles outside. They were my old good friends." Yang Yi turned around and introduced them. "Master Luo, Shen Xinyu, Xiao, this is my daughter Xixi. This is Uncle Luo, Uncle Shen, Uncle Yu and Uncle Gua." Uncle Gua. She was a little surprised. She turned to look at Gua Zi, who was explaining to Ding Xiang. The little girl was a little puzzled. "Why are there 2 Uncle Gua?" "Because their surnames are Gua, but that is Uncle Gua Zi, and this is Uncle Gua de Bao." Yang Yi smiled. "Okay then." After greeting them, Xixi ran to continue playing with Lan Exen. Because her father had stepped forward bravely and stood in front of her like a mountain, that fierce guy didn't leave any psychological trauma on Xixi. It was just like the children who liked to watch Ultraman in his previous life. Although they should be afraid of those ferocious monsters, as long as they believed that Ultraman would help them defeat those monsters, then those monsters were nothing to be afraid of. Gua Zi sensibly went to harass Ding Xiang and did not come over to disturb Yang Yi and his comrades' reunion. Yang Yi invited Luo Zongxing and the others, including Gua de Bao, to a larger booth and sat down together. He took out his own tea set from the bar counter and personally made tea for these brothers. Of course, they were not used to drinking coffee. "Holy shit, Yang Yi, what have you been through all these years? You've even started drinking tea like that." Shen Xinyu couldn't help but cry out when she saw Yang Yi use tweezers to pick up small purple clay teacups and wash them with boiling water as if they were pieces of art. Luo Zongxing and Yu Xiaotian's reactions were similar to Shen Xinyu's. Gua de Bao scratched his head and said, "I drink tea in big mouthfuls. This small teacup is not enough to quench my thirst." He used to be like that. In the past, Master Luo got some good tea leaves from some big shots, and he drank them like a cow chewing on peonies. Shen Xinyu exposed. Yang Yi smiled and turned to the bar counter to get a coffee cup for Gua de Bao. The other 3 were more or less in a refined mood, but Gua de Bao was probably not used to this kind of slow drinking method. Although Luo Zongxing also asked Yang Yi about the conflict at the dam, Yang Yi didn't want to talk about it and played it down. The few of them drank tea and talked about many things after Yang Yi left. After you left, there were some changes in Battle Wolf's people. Few batches came and a few batches left. First, it was Whistle and Old Chen who were injured and retired to do office work, and then, Luo Zongxing said with slight sadness, and Old Zhang and Zhu Zi, the 2 of them were sacrificed. Shen Xinyu added. Yang Yi was slightly stunned. Although he had long been indifferent to life and death, these 2 comrades of his were still fresh in his memory and were not unrelated targets to be killed. Hearing the news of their deaths, Yang Yi couldn't help but feel his heart clench. How did they die?" Yang Yi asked in a low voice. 4 years ago we besieged Nuoka, but the intelligence was wrong and we fell into his ambush." Luo Zongxing didn't want to talk about these sad things, but since Shen Xinyu had already spilled the beans, he briefly told Yang Yi. Naturally, it was inevitable to ask about Yang Yi's experiences over the years. Luo Zongxing and the others were very curious about what Yang Yi had experienced and how he had changed so much. He even wrote works like Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword. "It's nothing much. I've been traveling all over the world over the years and have worked in all kinds of industries, but I've always worked at the bottom and learned from the people around me. That's why I know a little bit of everything. As for writing novels, Yang-yi smiled and said casually, those years when I was alone, I could only read books to pass the time at night. After reading a lot of novels, I learned how to write them myself. These comrades didn't have any doubts, but they lamented that Yang-yi didn't have it easy. However, Shen Xinyu looked at Yang-yi strangely. What about your daughter? She's 5 or 6 years old, isn't she? I remember you didn't take a vacation a few years before you retired. This guy was still a little blabbermouth. What are you talking about? How beautiful is Yang-yi's daughter? Your facial features are the same as Yang-yi's. Luo Zongxing reprimanded. Yang-yi laughed and explained. She is only 4 years old. It's just that her mother is tall and has good genes, so she's a little taller than children her age. I see. Several people suddenly realized and breathed a sigh of relief for Yang-yi. Yang-yi didn't tell them about the ups and downs of his relationship with Murphy. He basically skimmed over it and refused to divulge anything. They chatted for a long time and even changed a few batches of tea leaves. However, Shen Xinyu had been thinking about sparring with Yang-yi. While Luo Zongxing went to the bathroom, he excitedly smiled. Yang-yi, just now Master Luo stopped me, but since we brothers haven't seen each other for so long, shouldn't we spar? I heard from Gua de Bao that your martial arts have improved a lot over the years. You can't beat Yang-yi. Gua de Bao kindly reminded him. Shen Xinyu was unhappy. F***ck, who said I can't beat him? Back in the days when we were in the army, he was defeated by me. The one surnamed Shen. When you say this, doesn't your conscience hurt? Yang-yi chuckled. His interest was piqued. He imitated Shen Xinyu's tone and said in a rough voice. Back then when I fought with you, who won more and who lost more? Don't you have any idea in your heart? At that time, Yang-yi and Shen Xinyu's skills were very strong. They were basically at the same level, but the two of them were not convinced by each other and felt that they won more. You said you won more. Ah Shao, you judge, didn't I beat him to the ground back then? Shen Xinyu was not convinced. Yu Shaotian has always been a quiet person. But at this time, he looked at the two people and opened his mouth. Regardless of the past, let's talk after we fight. Okay, let's talk after we fight. Shen Xinyu confidently stood up and raised his eyebrows at Yang-yi. Let's go. Luo Zongxing came back. When he saw this scene, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't stop them. People don't talk much. Yang-yi responded with action. He unbuttoned his coat, revealing the short sleeves inside. Shen Xinyu didn't show any weakness. He also took off his coat, revealing his robust body wearing a green vest. The two of them plunged into the cold wind outside. You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.